This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking. And Stephen Buonocore in the third chair.
I am the Podfather, you know.
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
Crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming. Coming at the speed of a T-47 airspeeder on full repulsor lift with Wedge Antilles behind the stick. This edition is brought to you by all of our friends at Patreon, the patrons who keep this show going and kept it going day after day, year after year, month after month, not necessarily in that order. And today I would like to thank Roger Williams, Aaron Williams, Donnie Williams, is it a family thing? Stuart Wilshire, Todd Whitty, Gordon Woods, Alex Wukovich. I know that was wrong. Hugh Wyeth and Seppi Yoon.
Seppi!
Today our panelists are, as always, Ross Sam Whistle Wakelin and the Podfather himself, Lord of the Stronghold, Stephen Pondababa Buonocore. Let's begin. Issue number one. Some of the most important things in life, whether in business, personal life, or online, are the relationships we build along the way. These bonds can spell the difference between success and disaster, happiness and heartache, and for many people, they form the very essence of what it means to be a success. A person can measure their wealth in terms of dollars, or they can measure it in terms of friends they've made along the way. Of course, the person who can manage both, well, they're probably well off all the way around. Question. What 18th century natural philosopher said, a man's friendships are one of the best measures of his worth? Roger Bacon Russ.
I don't know.
Thanks for playing. B. Spinoza Stephen.
John Paul Sartre.
Natural philosopher. Natural philosopher that you both know. Natural Charles Darwin.
Yes.
After watching all those animals eat each other.
Change my tongue.
We're done with that one. There are so many Star Wars games out now, it's going to be impossible to keep them all straight. Fantasy Flight Games is saturating every genre with their licensed fare, from cards and dice to minis and boards. Considering Wakelin's rule of 4, this is quite impressive, as FFG has shown a marked aversion to wandering out of the Galactic Civil War era in most of their games, which means there's only two sides, usually. Question. How many Star Wars games does Fantasy Flight Games currently have in their stable? Rebel Assault Russ.
I'm going to go with 12.
Rogue Squadron Stephen.
That was my answer, you creep. I will say 13.
13. Interesting. Well, it's a tricky one. It could be as few as 8 if you don't count expansions and supplements as separate games, or as many as 14 if we count all of the currently available iterations of all the games. In the spirit of rapid fire, however, we're going to say either 8 or 14 if you didn't pick either of those, which neither of you did. Wrong! Number 3. Ant-Man and the Wasp is the latest offering the expansive and ever-expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe. Continuing the saga of Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, the movie delves into ever-important universe questions such as how deep does the quantum realm go? And how good can an ant really be on a digital drum set? Question. What is the name of the real-life creatures that threaten to eat Hank Pym's transport craft as he tries to rescue his wife, Janet Van Deen, in the quantum realm? Water Bear Russ.
Amoebas.
Moss Sloth Stephen.
I don't know.
Wrong! It's close. I think you just added the pronunciation a little bit off. I don't know. Or tardigrades.
Oh, yes.
Of course, I knew that.
Micro-animals, 8-legged micro-animals, not amoeba, possibly the most resilient creatures on the earth, also known as water bears or moss sloths.
Yes.
Issue number 4. DNA, or the basic building blocks of life, can be tracked to establish relationships between living organisms, much the same way that ideas, processes, and themes can be used to establish relationships between almost anything else, from processed foods to gaming products. For instance, many games are simply reconfigurations of existing parts and pieces of other games, easily recognizable for any scholar who takes the time to look. Question. How many game design concepts must a new game borrow before they blend into a new innovative mechanic by magic? Relate it to Russ.
6.
Stir it up, Steven.
4.
Wrong! 0! Come on, wrong, Cam Hetherington. Or 5, whichever you didn't say. And since you said neither, it's going to be 0. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by
Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to episode 241, Craig.
Oh my gosh.
141. You know what that makes next episode? The answer to life, the universe, and everything plus 200.
Ooh, yes. I think you've been able to use that joke 3 times now. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Allant.
And I'm Stephen Buonocore, president of Stronghold Games. Hi, guys. How are you?
Steven, welcome back to the show.
Always happy to be here. It's
Always.
amazing.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, Craig,
Yes.
since Steven is on the show today, what are we going to talk about?
Well, I would imagine we're going to start it off by talking about some Stronghold stuff. But you know what? I think there was a spin on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Steven, going against type as the consummate showman and salesman that he is, wanted to expand his footprint in the D6 generation and talk more than just about Stronghold. He wanted to talk about how you develop relationships in the gaming industry and beyond, and how important those can be to success. That's what I sense is going to be a major theme on this show.
And it's going to be fun.
It is fun. It's a fascinating topic.
Two along the way.
I love this topic, Steven. It's a brilliant idea. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also, Craig, we are going to talk about a little bit about Star Wars, the game we both said we were going to avoid.
We said we hated it before it even came out. Yep.
I don't know if we hated it. We just said we weren't going to. We were going to. We were going to avoid it, and for some reason that we will explain later, we failed at that. And when I say we, I mean you.
Yes, I blame myself.
I blame you too.
I can't wait to hear why you thought you would hate it.
Yeah.
You guys are not known for throwing
Not like it.
It wasn't hate. It wasn't shade. It was more. I can't handle another miniature game.
Exactly.
Yes, that was it.
Type from this company. Yeah, we had totally legitimate reasons. For the way
Yes. Well, we'll talk more about that.
It was valid, but here we are anyway.
I thought so. But anyway, but before we get to all that, first we have some, business to take care of. First of all, of course, the Lost Chapters, as always, recorded in Dunkin' Donuts. We may or may not have run into Stephen Buonocore at Dunkin' Donuts.
Might have been there. I might have been there in New Hampshire.
Now, Stephen, do you remember what we discussed beyond your irrational hatred of Dunkin' Donuts? What did we discuss there as well?
Well, that was the most important thing, wasn't it?
It may have been. Yeah.
The fact that he was there at all.
We did what did we do there? We did the movie. We did Ant-Man, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, man. That was great.
We did.
That was a very topical discussion of what's happening in the Marvel universe and how it ties in to everything. It's like that's like life, the universe, and everything right now. What's going on in the Marvel universe? So.
Look at you with a callback. Exactly right. I love it. So that was a lot of fun. Craig, if people want to listen to that or the rest of the Lost Chapter catalog, how do they go about doing that?
Well, here's the deal, Russ. As we wind things down over on this side, that's pretty much where you're going to have to mine to get some fresh material for yourself. If you haven't seen the Lost Chapters before, you're going to want to go to the website, the d6generation.com or patreon.com. If you're going to Patreon, then you want to search for the D6 Generation. If you're going to the d6generation.com, then you want to search for Patreon, and you're going to press one of those buttons or the other button, and they're all going to bring you to the same place, which is the patreon.com D6G website, which will then explain how Patreon works. Basically, it's you trying to support the show, trying to keep things fresh and alive and at least available at this point. And it will unlock if you pledge $2 an episode or $2 an offering at this point, or more per episode. And you can lock that in so that it's a minimum a month. It's okay too. You will unlock the entire vault of the Lost Chapters, and that is more hundreds of hours of material at this point, I believe.
It's a lot. It's a lot of data. Yeah.
It stays topical forever, that stuff.
It's timeless.
It was great when I said it last week. It's going to be great when I say it, in the future.
From now.
It's great.
Yes.
But hey, on that topic in general, the fact that you guys are riding off into the sunset like a bad spaghetti western or something like that.
Yes.
No, I cannot. I got to get sappy a little bit here, but I cannot stress enough how great the show has been over the many years. You have contributed extensively to the catalog of podcasting, and I thank you so much for what you've done, literally what you guys have done to help promote board games, which has helped promote the industry. So thank you very much, and it is very sad to see you guys going. So thank you again.
Well, that was very kind, Stephen. Thank you very much. And we are the format of the show, as Craig mentioned earlier, is kind of as it has been is ending. But we'll still be throwing little bits of content out here and there. So keep an eye out for that. So don't lose our number. But
don't lose the number.
Right. Don't lose the URL. But unfortunately, yes, the show as it has been, as we mentioned a couple episodes ago now, it's a lot of work, and we felt like 10 years was a good run. So we're going to pause there. Very good. Yeah. But thank you, Stephen.
Good round number, 10.5.
Yes, 10.5. 10.5. Right. So the Gen Con episode will be the last. This is our last traditional third chair episode, 241, and then 242 coming out in August here after Gen Con will be the last episode of that format. And then those of you who heard the D6G PIP, that is sort of a preview of some of the new little bits we'll be sending out in the not too distant future. So, and Stephen, that was very kind. Thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome.
Now, also, speaking of kind, one little bit we noticed as upon Stephen's return, we had made a terrible error, Craig.
Error.
Yes, we had run a Stronghold Games contest back in 2017 to win a copy or two of Space Freaks, the amazing new game at that time from Stronghold Games. Yes. And we got entries for this contest, but somehow through only our own fault, we never really materialized the results of the contest. Now,
that's to take one moment here. That's one of the many things that was kind of like a trigger for us.
Yes.
Anytime we tried to do something extra, our bandwidth was so narrow. We was already full of everything we tried to do that things like this that we got excited about, but we just didn't have time for, and they were constantly falling through the cracks. So we feel awful, and every time we on Twitter we see you guys and we remember, and then we try to do it and then we don't have the time, and so here we are trying to make good, and we went into this episode with all intents to try to make good, and then Stephen, being the man with all the power and just heaping tons of generosity, offered to do what, Stephen?
Well, there were 5 entries back in 2017, and we had already said we were going to give away to the 3 best. We're going to give away a copy of Space Freaks, which was the new game from Stronghold in November of 2017. Mm-hmm. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to give away a copy to every one of those entries, all 5 entries, and you guys will insert the entries so that people can actually hear what everyone did, and everybody who did an entry, all 5 of you will get a copy of the game, and we're very happy. And let me plug that we are actually going to be coming out with an expansion for Space Freaks.
Awesome.
Probably end of year, early next year, most likely, called Space Freaks Violet Morass. So more crazy colors on the box. And more crazy fighting in the arena of Annihilation. So again, thank you guys for holding the contest and for keeping this alive and making sure we did the right thing, by the fans who did do those entries. I'm happy to give away the extra games.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
For helping do the right thing.
Yeah, so our entrants here, so Frederick B, Mark W, Ray G, Rob B, and Timothy T. You guys know who you are. Your entries are going to play right now. Here they come. This first entry is from Frederick B.
Welcome to the Arena of Annihilation. You are in store for an action-packed night as we start this new season. Whether you like it up close and personal in melee, long-range weapons, or the chaos of mutations, it will all be coming your way tonight. Let's hope these teams have gained some favor with their sponsors to really spice things up. What kind of mischief do I have in store for these freaks? Stay tuned to find out.
Up next, it's Mark Wynn.
Hello, citizens. Welcome to the first battle of the 34th season of Space Freaks. It is I, your arena master, and me, Myron. Today's battle is brought to you by the Power Battery, the best battery in the galaxy, and the only one. It's also brought to you by Stronghold Games, because they sponsor everything of quality. The zones are lighting up, Myron. Here we go.
Now it's time for Ray Greenlee.
Welcome to the Arena of Annihilation, you sadistic degenerates. Are you ready for misshapen mutant monstrosities, unlike anything any natural biosphere could produce? Are you ready for blood and battle, carnage and combat, destruction and dismemberment, evisceration and eradication? Then it's time for the greatest sport in the galaxy. It's time for Space Freaks!
These are all so great. Now we've got Rob Burnett.
Welcome to the Space Freak Rumble 40,000. Brought to you by Perrier. The cleanest air in the galaxy. I'm Seymour Carnage, and as always with me is my pal Merv. Merv, what do we have in store for tonight?
Well, in our first bout, we have a Dramus, the laser-tailed vegetable from Zarkon 5.
Feed me, Carbon!
And in the other corner...
Whoa, what's that blue trash can doing in the ring?
That's what 1.21 gigawatts can do to a recycling station. Oh well, that was short-lived.
Okay, Merv. Well, looks like Adramus is moving up in the ladder. Now he'll be facing the undisputed heavyweight of the galaxy. The Great Green Ancient One. The sleeper of early A. Ladies and gentle freaks, put your hands together for Cthulhu! Must be blood. And they're off. Stop him! There's more tentacles in this fight than an anime movie.
You're telling me. I think one just went into my mouth.
I don't think that was a tentacle, Merv.
It looks like the room is filling up with some sort of all-consuming evil.
Things are looking pretty dire here. We're gonna need a fresh load of freaks to beat this monstrosity.
And finally, it's Timothy Taufek. Hope I got your last name right there, Timothy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Arena of Annihilation.
The Arena of Annihilation. Quiet, Myron.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Bring on the Space Freaks. Bring on the Space Freaks. Come join us in time for the action. When building your team to fight, forget about attraction.
What is that? Tentacles? It's disgusting.
Yes, but deadly, and they ain't prone to rusting. I'm excited. Teams best be careful. Which team is gonna win? My bet is placed on Orange Peril. Crowd is going wild, telling teams what to do. Yes, you'll earn points if you make it through. If they can't do the task, that's alright. Time to ask your sponsors for new weapons in this fight. Yellow Freaks advance, going for the enemy. Little do they know mines are waiting for them at their feet. Ouch! Look into the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane. Ooh, that's a bad way to die.
Halfway through, it's a blast. Violet is in last. Hope that bet I made will come to pass.
Can you believe I've been doing this for over 30 years? Wow, you're old. Quiet, Myron. It's time for a commercial break. Don't leave your seats, our sponsors have a word to say. Are you thirsty? You should think. Drink. I understand that everyone will want this pink drink. Rich in iron, rich in protein, rich in zinc, ink. Cosmic Cola. We all know it's the best drink. We're back. How many freaks died because teams were diabolical and different? Okay, back to the event. It's almost time for a victor. Teams are slowly getting much better. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have a winner!
All right, there they are. And so thank you, gentlemen. And please email us your mailing addresses. And Stephen at Stronghold will send out those amazing freshly shrunk wrap copies. Right, Stephen?
Absolutely.
Fresh off the presses there. So thank you, Stephen, for that contest. And thank you for your patience, listeners. We apologize that took so long to make right. So thanks again, Stephen, for keeping us good on that. And finally, if you are looking for the place to see us in our last full show format, that will be, of course, Craig, it will be a Gen Con, correct?
Yes.
It will.
Yes.
Saturday morning.
8:00 in the morning on Saturday.
8 o'clock.
Insane.
It's 8 o'clock. Now, Stephen, I have it on good authority that you will be there.
I will be there, and I promise to have a hangover with me. Promise.
Excellent. So Stephen will be there.
Promises, but you know what this feels like, Russ? This feels like the beginning of a semester when we all have an 8 o'clock class together.
Everybody's going to be there every day. We're not going to miss a single class. That's right. That's right.
It's like we've got Edelstein for game theory at 8 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
It is.
And we all have every intention of making every class set.
But it's a game theory class, so I kind of feel like you could skip it and still get an easy A, right?
Did you tell me that Jeff Engelstein is promising donuts for everybody in the audience?
Well,
everyone.
He promised donuts, but then when I pressed him on this, he said he was bringing 2. So
I have to call shenanigans on this because it really feels like the professor of gaming is gaming his own statement.
I feel like he is. So here's your thing. Be one of the first 2 people in the audience and ask. That is what you got to do.
No, it's better.
And you'll get
everybody
one.
Everybody who walks in goes over to Jeff and says,
right, go, Jeff, do you have any donuts left? Just go up to him. And if you want to be really good, ask him for a specific flavor. Make sure he's got the one you like. Don't accept like random donut number 5, right? Make sure. Yeah. So this is we're going to do game theory right now. And then later, at some point in the future, Jeff will create and publish a game that is about donut consumption, I'm sure.
I just texted Jeff and I told him that he better bring a lot of donuts to the D6G thing.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. I can show you the picture.
No,
I just texted
I believe you. I believe you should warn him because this is something that he has created on his own volition. All right. So what's the time now for, Craig?
Time now for
Achievements in Gaming.
It is brought to us by all of our great friends over at Patreon. Stephen, what have you been playing lately?
Yeah, what have I been playing? Lots and lots of prototypes because that's what I do. So, we have to constantly look at new things that are coming out. So that's been most of my time. But fortunately, one of the things that I'm able to do is like at the conventions, because we're obviously right now in the midst of convention season. And I had 5 trips in 7 weeks, 5 convention oriented trips. So all of the new releases by Stronghold, I don't demo them in the booth. I have we have demo people that do that. I certainly get a chance to play them a little bit, during the day and in the evening. So all of our new releases like Memo R, you guys are family guys. Memo R is an amazing, amazing family game because it's a memory game. So kids by definition, are going to kill you at this game.
Yes, they will.
So if you guys don't have a copy, I got to get you a copy of Memoir. It's really wonderful for families. Steamrollers is our new roll and write game. So we just released that one, and it's like Age of Steam, that big 3-hour game meets modern roll and write. So in 30 minutes, you get that whole mechanic of, pick up and deliver, upgrade your engine, build your tracks. It's really has gotten a great buzz. Everyone's top 10 roll and writes of all time. Whoosh Bounty Hunters is a quick reaction game. We just released that one, and Gold Fever, which is like my favorite little thing to say. # Tom Vassell doesn't like fun, because we've been using that, and we actually put that on BGG and banner ads on BGG because he panned the game. He panned it. So we put it up there, and some people are going like, oh wow, that's so mean. I'm like, no, it's fun because
I like it.
Yeah.
So this is like your counter. So basically, your play is, if Tom doesn't give you the Dice Tower seal of approval on a game, you just put # Tom Vassell doesn't like fun on the box.
That's it. No,
yeah, right. Brilliant. I think this is brilliant. It's like the folks that can't go to Gen Con do # Gen can't. It's the same thing. It's like, if someone can't be the fun for you, you be the fun to them. That's what I say.
For this particular game, because it's a 10-minute push your luck kind of game, and every person I play it with says, my God, this is just silly fun. I call it a bar game, because it's a bunch of acrylic crystals, a bunch of rocks. Essentially, what you're doing, you're trying to pull the gold out of your bag. So as you're doing that, you're pushing your luck, and everyone's laughing and screaming as you don't do it right, and speed rounds occur. Tom didn't get it because he just didn't get it, and I'm like, okay, you don't understand it. Well, I guess you don't hang out, and have fun. You just want to be serious about your games. This is the kind of game for people who just want to have fun with games. # Tom Vassell doesn't like fun, but we teased him about it, and it was great. A whole bunch of really great things coming out. My big Gen Con release, which we're having this big party on.
Yeah. So let me now. You got me all excited about this.
Yeah.
So this party, do you need to have tickets in advance, or can people just show up, or how are you going to run this thing?
Technically, you need to have a ticket in advance, but if you just get a ticket, it's $2. It's the best $2 you spend. It goes to Gen Con. It's called, by the way, it's Fist of Dragonstones, the Tavern Edition.
This game looks brilliant. Yeah. So give us the lowdown. I've been reading about it, because this is one of the games. This is one of the games I'm going to be hunting about. So tell us about it.
So this is a re-release of a game that Days of Wonder did back in the early 2000s, I think it was, by Bruno Faiduti and Mikkel Schacht. Days of Wonder, one of their first games, way before they did Ticket to Ride, they were bought by Asmodee, and it is a closed fist bidding game. We redeveloped, Asmodee lost the license. We redeveloped the game with Bruno. We added 3 times as many cards into the game, up the quality of a few different components to it, and we're relaunching it, and we're setting it in the Dragon and Flagon universe, which is kind of cool. So it's the Tavern edition, and we're using the characters that are in there. Essentially, you're auctioning for the powers that various characters will give you in a closed fist manner. Those auctions will win you the benefits that the characters bring you, which could then be turned into Dragonstones, and the Dragonstones can be turned into victory points for the end. And the cool thing about this is that on Thursday night at Gen Con, we're having this big party. Tickets are still available. If you go get a ticket for Fist of Dragonstones, the Tavern Edition Lost.
There's 57 left. I'm grabbing them right now.
Yes, there you go. And there's going to be 120 people. There's going to be celebrities, gaming celebrities there. I invite the 2 of you. I can reserve you 2 VIP tickets on Stronghold. If you would like to go. I don't know what your Thursday's like, but
I'm in. Sign me up, Steven. I'm buying tickets, but sign me up also. I'll be giving tickets away.
It's very nice of you.
I've not signed up to go to Gen Con yet, so I can't buy tickets. So I'll take one of yours.
You probably should do that.
Are you really not signed up? Are you kidding?
What have you done?
I tried. Not responding. I sent them.
All right.
So if you guys really do want to go, I'm serious. I mean, I will give you on the VIP tables. I have a couple of VIP tables. We'd love to have you there on Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. Everybody gets a free glass mug. We've done this every year. We give a gift to every person who shows up, and people who are there, some people take the game with them. We give the winners will take the game with them. So it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of what I've been playing and stuff like that. Hopefully, people will stop by the Gen Con booth as well and check out those games and many, many others that will be that we're going to be having.
Sounds like a very busy schedule for you there, Stephen. I love it.
Yes,
I love it. Craig, what have you been playing?
Oh, it's been a while. I've been kind of busy. Let's see. So I have been playing the heck out of Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team. Games Workshop sent us a copy of Kill Team about a month ago because they wanted to have time to paint it, which I didn't have time to do. But they wanted to play. It was very interesting because we got it, but then there was an embargo on mentioning anything about it. So I can't tell you how many pictures I had on my phone. I can't send any of these out. And then they opened they raised the embargo a week early, which was fun. And so we kind of flooded the internet with a few pictures here or there, but what we've done. So we had the opportunity, or I've been playing it. Russ was away, gallivanting around the globe as he does. And I've been playing with all kinds of different. I brought basically a kill team from every army in 40K that I own, which is a lot. And so we've done Space Wolves, and we've done Death Guard, and we've done regular Space Marines, which in Kill Team are basically the same as Space Wolves so far. No, I don't know how the expansion that's going to be released later next week or the week after is going to have an effect on that. Not sure. We've done Death Watch. We've done the Gene Stealer cult that comes with the base set, which was awesome. We've done lots of guard. Russ played guard. I played guard. There's been like 4 different configurations of Adeptus, whatever they're called, Astra Militarum, I guess. The old Imperial Guard. The Adeptus Mechanicus I used. So we've used a whole bunch of them. Unfortunately, nobody had Eldar. I was kind of eager to see Eldar run around, but nobody had them. So that was. Now, what did you think about that, Russ? Because we played more of that than we've played almost anything else recently.
Yeah, well, it was a weird journey for me because I went from not being that excited about it because I wanted, when Necromunda came out, I was disappointed in the new Necromunda because it was basically the old Necromunda. So then I was afraid that Kill Team was going to be the old Kill Team. But then I played a game of it, and I really liked it. But then, the more I played it, the more I didn't like it. So I think the problem I have with it is I really don't, it was like 40K 8th edition for me. I did not care for 40K 8th edition until I started playing with the cards and the objective cards. And once they got the objective cards all going, and everybody started playing with objective cards, the game got really, really good. Kill Team suffers for that for me. So what I found was the faction balance really is not there. And missions might help with that, but the way the missions are structured now, most of them are I don't know, they're not really making the game tactically interesting. And I think the other big challenge, and Craig helped us a lot because he added a lot more terrain. But if you play with just what's in the box, the way the terrain is structured, it's very open. So basically, there isn't anywhere to hide. So there's not really a lot of tactical choice on the battlefield. So if your mission does not really have like objectives or any reason to move, it's really becomes a game of just kind of like older 40K. Like you can either stand there and go on Overwatch, try to shoot the other guy who's on Overwatch, or you can be the guy that runs in and try to make the game interesting, but you got to die horribly, right? And that's kind of how it played. So by the first game, I was like, well, this is interesting. And by the second game, I'm like, oh, I can see some holes. And by the third game, is like, oh yeah, if I play this 5 or 6 or 10 times, it'd be the same game over and over again. So I'm hopeful that they will recognize this and, like 40K, come out with objective cards and really make it interesting. What it did for me though, Craig, is it really wanted me to go play 40K more. So that part worked. Which I guess is its goal, right?
I guess. Yeah, I would have to say, I mean, I think the mechanics are very innovative, especially for a 40K variety of game, right? I love the fact that it's no longer just straight up you go, I go. Mm-hmm. There's some integration built into it, but it's a very interesting sort of twist on integration where at the beginning, you're going to move all your models, that I'm going to move all my models. But one of my options for moving my models is to ready them, which means basically they're aiming. So they're not going to move this turn. They're going to focus on shooting. And then in the shooting phase, you alternate model by model, and all of the readied models shoot first. And then all of the models that moved, but it can still shoot. You go, I go. Like, you go one guy, I go one guy. I thought that was very interesting, and it made it a lot more intriguing in missions where, in games where the mission required some tactics and some thought, and it wasn't just a straight up kill everybody else on the other side. And I've played a bunch. 8 games now, which is probably more than any other game I've played this year, I would think. 8 is a lot to get in, and it was only over the course of 3 weeks because the game can go very quickly. I was regularly getting 2 games in a night, or 3 in some instances. But I thought the other than that, the mechanic, it's straight up 40K. In fact, the army building is, you're basically looking at the data sheets for the units in Warhammer 40,000, except for a couple tweaks for the makeup of the actual kill team. And then you've got some cool specialists that have some cool abilities. And then there's they have stratagems, but instead of calling them stratagems, they call them tactics, which can get confusing. And then, but I felt like there were way more of those than there are stratagems in 40K, where you have like 4 basic ones, maybe 6 basic ones, and then your army might have 12 or 16, but they're situational, so maybe there's going to be 4 or 5 that you're going to use any one game. Here, the mission has some, your army has some, then every specialist has some. It was like they just kept stacking up all these different, and there's like 8 or 10 that everybody can have. And so I felt like I was overwhelmed with these stratagems. And it's not like 40K where your army build gives you a certain amount of tactics points to use for those. You get 1 at the beginning of every turn. And then if your leader is alive, you get another at the beginning of every turn. So you're starting the game with 2, and then you can accumulate them over the course of the game. So there weren't that many. So I felt like there were all these options, all these choices. And yet at the same time, if I'm going to husband my points so that I can use some of these cool ones, then I'm not going to use, so it seemed like a really cool mechanic that was added into the game, but at the same time, almost like a Euro kind of mechanic where I had too many choices and I couldn't do almost any of them. And so those rare times when I had one that really could have saved me, I forgot it, or there's like one huge powerful one that was like a game changer. And so I would echo Russ's point where I feel like the balance is a little off also. And I'm not sure if that's, 8 games is a lot for one person to play in a short period of time. It is not a lot for play testing. So it could be that everything balances out over time, but I felt like there were some stratagems or tactics that some armies had access to that seemed a lot more powerful than other armies' stratagems. So although I found the structure very neat and intriguing, and I think it's going to be an awesome marketing tool, and there's all kinds of cool new terrain that comes with it, and the box set comes with like a whole wreck block of giant buildings. I'm not sure I'm going to dive into it as deeply as I thought I would in the first up to 6 games that I was playing. I was very excited, but over the last few games, they started to feel very redundant. And so I had plans to buy all the terrain, and I was going to buy another starter set, and I was going to get the Space Wolves, and now I think I'm going to kind of pull back and see how it does locally. So that was my feeling on that. And then Star Wars because I'm still in games I played, was a huge hit locally, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So I got into it, and I put all the stuff together, and I started painting it on my own. So I own both factions, everything we could possibly need, including a whole bunch of terrain that I got that I'll talk about in modeling. And I was all excited and ready to go. And I played Russ once, and he liked it, and he saw a lot of the things that I saw in it that we'll talk about later in the show. And then I went to our friends, Joe and John, Russ's brother, and Pete. And I'm always looking for the game that I want them to like so that we can have a game that we can go to. We get together very seldom, but I always like to have games. So they're always willing to try new games. And they loved Legion, which was super exciting. So I have played 5 games of Legion over the last 3 weeks, including mostly big full-size games, and then 1 starter set game with Reese, because I kind of wanted to get a feel for whether or not he could kind of handle the tactics and the reading requirement. I mean, he's really good at reading now and stuff, but putting it all together, and he really liked it. We're going to play another full game, him and I, over the next couple of days, and I think you'll probably hear about that later. And then in and amidst all this, there was another really fun game of Waterdeep, which is always a fun game, and those are the games that I played. How about you, Russ?
Excellent choice. So, Stephen, I don't know if I mentioned to you, I was off to Norway with my family for a vacation.
I heard. That's pretty amazing.
Which was fun. It was awesome. And whilst there, I actually picked up a game that I've seen before, but I saw a really nice version of this. Are you familiar with the game? Some folks call it Tafel or Viking chess, or the actual name for it is, I can't pronounce it. It's Hnefatafl. I don't even know how you say that.
I can't believe you can't pronounce that.
Yeah. So are you familiar with this game?
I am not. Must say.
So it's I picked it up because I found a set that looked really, really nice. And when I've seen all sets before, they're very simple. It almost looks like closer to Viking checkers, honestly. But what's interesting about this game, and I was reading the history of it, and there I am at the Viking Ship Museum, and they've got this really cool copy that looks like it's not ivory and wood, but it looks like it's carved from ivy, and there's little pieces. But what's interesting about this is it's a abstract game like chess, but what's interesting about it is it's asymmetric. So the Viking player, there's 2 sides, a white side and a dark side, and the white side's in the middle, and they have a larger piece that's the Viking king, and around him are those little Vikings, and then the other player has surrounded them and have more pieces, but they have no king, and they surround the Viking king on all 4 sides. And what's interesting about this is the game was built on the way that Vikings would fight, which was almost always outnumbered, right? And your goal is to basically get your king off the board. But your king is actually your most hardest piece to kill, so it's also really powerful. And all the pieces move like rooks, so it's very simple to play. But to capture a piece, you have to surround it on 2 sides. It's a very, very interesting game. I love the set I got, so it's a nice little souvenir. But I was really, I had heard of it and seen it before, but I never played it. And I was really surprised by, after a couple plays, how much is there. It's actually a really good game. So if you see one of these lying around, it's probably worth playing. I thought it was really pretty cool. So played that, and then whilst on the plane, I do like to carry with me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Craig.
No. I just wanted to say very quickly that the fantasy novel that I just sold, that will be available next year, has at its central story as a metaphor that game.
There you go.
Really?
It gets played multiple times. Yeah, it was when he tweeted that he found this game and it was really exciting and he wanted to, I was like, oh my God, that's so bizarre. Because when I was researching for the book, I found it and it did exactly what I needed it to do for these characters. And so it's actually in the book.
So how do you pronounce Hnefatafl?
I don't. Because my book doesn't take place in actual Earth with actual Vikings. So
it's not
the
Viking.
translation.
I would like you to also know, Russ, that I just texted a very good Norwegian friend of mine to see if A, he's heard of it, and B, he's ever played it. So I don't expect him to get back to us now, since it's about 2 a.m. right now in Norway, but
it is.
I will find out.
Now you can find it. When I tweeted pictures of my copy, people have said they have found it in other areas in Northern Europe and Scandinavian countries. It turns out that the game had really good penetration anywhere the Vikings ended up, which was pretty much most of the world. But then chess eventually replaced it, as most folks felt it was a more interesting game. But I think it's pretty neat. It's worth trying out.
Very cool.
Now, another thing I like to do when I travel, there's a lot of downtime because you're stuck on a 7-hour plane ride, and then you may have a car ride, or you may have a day where you're just relaxing in the afternoon in the hotel because you're just tired or whatever. You had been on a 6-hour hike or something. So I like to bring board games with me, but it's hard when you're traveling to bring a giant case of board games. So my favorite way to travel with board games is to put digital copies on my various travel computers. And so I have a bunch from Steam that I have on my Surface. And so we played a lot of Carcassonne. The Carcassonne Steam game is great. and my kids love that. What I particularly like about that is it fixes the hardest thing in Carcassonne, which is the farmers.
Oh yeah,
because the digital version, there's a mode where you can show what the farmers currently own, like color codes, the map, or the tiles, which hardcore Carcassonne players are probably like, hey, wait a minute, the best part about the farmers is it's hard to see what's happening, but it does make it a little more interesting and makes the farmers easier to understand, which is good for people. Also, a fantastic, Stephen, I don't know if you've ever played the digital version of Galaxy Trucker.
No, but I was a very huge player of Galaxy Trucker in the day. So
as a Galaxy Trucker fan, you need to find this version. It's available on Steam, but it's also available on the iPad. What I love about it is they've tweaked it so it can be pass and play. Because
nice.
you may remember, Galaxy Trucker is a simultaneous game, right? Where everybody's grabbing tiles for the middle. And what they've done with the digital version is that each player instead has action points. And you spend action points when you either expose a new tile or you spend action points when you put a tile in your ship, And so what happens is during your turn, you're trying to decide, do I take the next token that's in the middle of the board that I need for my ship? Or is it not that good and I'll spend another action point to expose another token, but it's my last action point. So that exposed token, now all the other players will see was they use their action points before it gets back to me again. So it makes the game very pass and playable. So you can play it on an airplane or in the car with your kids. It's got all the different ship variants in it. It's really great. If you like Galaxy Trucker, highly recommend that. And then once the trip was over, we got back to some D&D 5th edition. Really been having a great time with my family with that. Craig already talked about Kill Team. Played that a few times with Craig, 3 times. And then, of course, 2 games of Star Wars Legion as well. So, a lot of good gaming going on there, though. But definitely highly recommend the travel versions of games on your iPad or your laptop because no better way to get them around.
I have an update, by the way, on the donut situation at your event. Jeff Engelstein says, already taken care of. I have a guy, a donut guy.
I have a guy. There's a guy in Indianapolis.
And I said to him, you better deliver the baked goods or there's going to be a problem.
Okay, so Stephen, you are now officially the enforcer.
Yes.
To ensure that Jeff's guy delivers. I need someone from Jersey to handle the other guy from Jersey.
Meanwhile, I live in Florida now, but yeah.
Now you do, and you're probably getting a little soft on us. I didn't want to say anything.
I know a guy in New Jersey. I know a guy in New Jersey. Take care of that guy in New Jersey. Don't worry.
All right, good. Excellent. What about modeling, Stephen? I know you're not really a painter or a gamer, a miniature gamer, but you do make stuff. Have you had to have any things made lately?
I have not had any miniature style things made. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I am very sorry about that. But I'm waiting for you guys to teach me the skills. Someday we'll get together and you will teach me the skills I need to be a.
Well, now that we're kind of semi-retired from this whole long form podcast,
there you go.
Maybe we can do that. That'd be fun.
We'll work on it.
All right, Craig. What about you, sir?
Part of retirement. What about me in modeling? Well, let's see. I did the entire I did a giant Imperial army and a giant Rebel army for Star Wars. And I did it to a pretty high standard. The troopers, I'll tell you, the Rebel troopers were a giant pain in my butt because they're all different. I wanted to make them look more like they were out of Rogue One. So they're not really uniform. They look more like they're from a Vietnam game than from Star Wars. And then Stormtroopers, of course, were easier and faster. But Fantasy Flight has this guy, Zorostro, and he does painting videos. He's a very nice, well-spoken English man who does painting videos for them to a ridiculously high level. And he's already done pretty much almost every model ever made for Imperial Assault. And then they turned him to doing Star Wars Legion. And I think the only one that he doesn't have right now are the most recent releases like Leia and Veers and maybe the Snow Troopers and the Imperial Fleet Troopers. But they're great videos, and Karen has been making fun of me because she keeps catching me watching how to paint videos, and she keeps saying, "Don't you know how to paint? Don't haven't you been doing this for 30 years?" But I've learned all kinds of stuff. I learned, for instance, matte varnish works as a great little gap filler. I had no idea. And when you're doing these Fantasy Flight models, which are a little rubbery, the arms maybe don't fit in exactly the way they want, so there's a little gap. Zarostro just does this it brushes on some matte varnish and it fills the gap. So I did it with that. I did it with a bunch of the Kill Team models. It works great. Also, sourced lighting, which I've always tried to do and I've always failed. He has sourced lighting for both Luke's lightsaber and Vader's lightsaber. I haven't gotten to Vader's lightsaber yet because I got him, black and then a red lightsaber, and then I left him for a while so I could finish everything else. But very excited to do that because I really like the way Luke came out with his sourced lighting, so it looks like the lightsaber is glowing. And then he does a great job showing you how to do the vehicles and griming them all up and making them look like they right out of the movie. So the airspeeder and the Rebel Walkers, I think, are my favorite because the paint strips on them look all chipped and rusted out, and I really loved the way those painting videos work. So I'd highly recommend those. I put together 3 full kill teams. I didn't paint them, and then I have my big 3D terrain issue where I got a bunch of 3D terrain from our friend Tim, who got himself a 3D printer and printed out a bunch of stuff, but he prints out like super fast and low resolution, but in really hardy plastic. And then I spent a lot of money getting Legion buildings online, and they don't, it's very high resolution. It was awesome. When I got the pieces, they were great. They were like for like much cheaper than a GW hard plastic kit. And I mean, you get them fully formed and they're great and they looked awesome. And I was all excited. And I brought them with me on a warm day and what brought them with me to the game store. So they were in my trunk just for the afternoon. And 3 of the big, most expensive pieces warped to the point of their useless.
No kidding.
And yeah, and it's not my fault. I mean, not their fault, I should say. I'm not blaming them, but I didn't know how heat sensitive some of this 3D printed stuff was. Wow. And I had all of the Kill Team terrain in my car at the same time, in the same temperature. That's all hard plastic. Of course, that was fine. All of the robust stuff that our friend Tim made with his 3D printer was fine. But the really expensive, fine detailed stuff, I had one piece survive because it's a really big, beefy piece. So apparently it wasn't fine enough to melt. So that was very frustrating. And now I'm finding myself, because I do that all the time, I'm bringing all of my terrain with me, whether I'm going to your brother's house or to Joe's house or the game store. I kind of bring everything I need so I can set up these games to play. So we can all have like a really cool experience. And if this 3D printed stuff can't stand up to a warm trunk for a couple hours, then I really can't. It's not something I can invest in anymore, which really upset me because this stuff looked beautiful. And the one piece that didn't warp looks great as a centerpiece on my tables. But it was very, very, very frustrating.
You need to invest in some. No, Craig, you just need to drop $500 on a good Yeti cooler with some ice.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and
then
some
you'd be ready
ice.
to go. Right.
Around in a cooler full of ice.
Exactly.
I could do that.
Yeah.
And then finally I got around to opening my A Song of Ice and Fire Kickstarter pledge from Simon. And man, these models look gorgeous. I brought the book with me. We took Reese and a friend of his for his birthday to a resort for just a couple days this week. And I was just by the pool reading the rule book, which is full of amazing, beautiful Game of Thrones art. And I don't know about gameplay at all. I mean, I read it. It's very simple. It's only 30 pages. It is parts of it are a little reminiscent in the mechanics themselves of Rune Wars, in that it's a ranked fantasy battle game, but doesn't have any of the initiative dials and turning templates and all kinds of things like that. So I think it's kind of a simplified version of that. But they have been listening to the Wakeland rule. And although the Kickstarter was all about Lannisters and Starks, at retail release, which I'm kind of hoping is at Gen, they're going to have 4 factions right off the bat with Starks, Lannisters. They're also going to have Night's Watch and the Wildlings. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. I'm trying not to buy anything new for that till I have it painted up. and we've played a few games, so I can see if it's got any legs. But the models look great so far, and they come fully built and ready to go. And they're all Dark Sword approved, which of course Dark Sword has the modeling license for A Song of Ice and Fire. They make the beautiful metal miniatures, and so although these models were designed by Simon, they're all approved by Dark Sword, and they're just gorgeous. All the characters and everything. What about you, Russ?
Cool. Well, not much. I did get my Hero Forged models there, and I did paint my worm speaker, someone who I custom worm speaker I created for my 5e campaign, which I'm excited about. He's a bad guy. And then also I've been making more progress on my non-IP infringing multi-headed, multicolored dragon. So I'm getting farther along on that. I'm really pleased with how it's coming out as well. So we've been having a lot of fun with that too.
That's good. Because the bullet not Tiamat progress made me nervous for you.
Yes, it is the not Tiamat model that's making progress.
It's progress on not Tiamat as opposed to not making progress on Tiamat.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. What about other geeky goodness, Mr. Buonocore? What about books, movies, video games, television?
I'm all about the geek, my friend.
I love it.
All about the geek. Well, we already talked about Ant-Man and Wasp to the max on the Lost Chapters. So that was great, and all the great movies that are out already this year and coming out. I mean, I've just been eating them up. I want to mention Solo.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about Solo?
So we had a good discussion on Solo with Terrace, actually, of all people.
There we go.
In Dunkin' Donuts, and both Craig and I really enjoyed Solo, and we're very disappointed that so many people didn't appear to. So we liked it. What about you, Stephen?
I liked it, but I just didn't think it was up to the current quality of the movies. So I thought that the movie didn't have the story, a sort of a more epic story that it could have had. It was just a nice story, and maybe that's what it should have been. Just a nice story.
So you're looking for epic, like a more meaningful story, or
something more meaningful and something that would be
a Star Wars story.
It is a Star Wars story.
It's just like
no, okay, no. So I mean, it was a little disappointing. It was not a bad movie by any stretch of imagination. Not a bad movie. It just didn't. I was like, okay, fun, nice. Didn't have that feel of like it really, to me, just brought everything together. Again, had all the points about Star Wars. So I did not dislike it. I just didn't love it.
Okay.
Everything else has been great this year, and even this craziness of Deadpool 2, and of course, right? And
oh yeah, that was great.
Infinity War, maybe one of the greatest movies of all time, and I think we all know that. It's just amazing. Yeah. Can't wait for Aquaman. I mean, that guy is actually going to make Aquaman of all people cool, right? I mean,
you think so? I'm nervous. I mean, I want one of the DC movies to not suck.
No, I think he is so amazing. I forgot the actor's name, and I apologize for that. But, he has done amazing things, with geek stuff already in Game of Thrones, and he was a star in Justice League. I thought he was a highlight of that movie.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I thought he was great. So I think Aquaman, I have high hopes for it because he's in it and making it cool. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
Right. Fingers crossed that. But I'm obviously very high on the movies. TV wise, just finished, literally like this week, finished Westworld season 2.
What'd you think of the end? I did. I got to the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. Right at the end, I fell asleep, but not because I was not interested. Not because so I missed a little bit of some subtleties right at the end. But I have it there on DVR, and I will end up watching it. But I really liked. I was very skeptical how they were going to like go from where they ended it to like, what's the next thing? But they picked it up exactly at that moment, which made so much sense. And then they just continued it and gave you this bigger picture. So, I liked it a lot. I was kind of a fan of the of what they ended up trying to do with it. I'll give you my final thing once I rewatch that final episode. So I get everything ready.
Good.
The really interesting thing is The Expanse. Now, I know you guys mentioned to me from the beginning that The Expanse would be like a great book to read and to go and experience. The the television series, which had not even come out yet the first time we talked about this. And I just absolutely am loving it. And that whatever season we're in now, the third season, I guess it is, right? I had a great idea. Did you guys see the whole thing? Did you guys?
I made an error. I paused watching the season when the show was canceled. But then the show got picked up by Amazon or whoever. Right. So now I know I want to watch the rest, and I haven't. So I'm only about half a way through the latest season, but now I want to go back and watch the rest of it.
Craig, you?
Yes, I've watched it all the way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with it and the direction it goes in and the intrigue and all that. So it makes me just feel very good about something that's going to continue an arc now and on a different network, right? So I'm excited about that.
Now, having read the book, did you read the books?
No. Now, I admit I did not read the books, and I'm sure that the books are better and all that. I mean, that's almost always the case.
They are, but that's not where the direction I was going. I would not shame it that way. It's just that the books break down into there's 3 books, right, that tell one overarching story, and then there's like one book that kind of like sort of floats in the middle, and then the 5th book starts a whole new story arc. So it makes sense that sci-fi was kind of like, okay, we're going to be done here, because they kind of rush headlong and do an entire novel in the second half of the 3rd season. So it was clear that they had positioned themselves to be able to make this decision if they wanted to, which is why, Russ, you have to rush back and watch that episode, because those are some of the second half of the season, because they are amazing. It's like all of the coolest stuff in the books, all in the like 6 or 7 episodes of just awesomeness at the end there.
Right.
And so it's intriguing what they're going to do for me next season, because that's my least, that little linking book that links the 2 major plots together is my least favorite. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. But I was super, super happy with the way that season ended. They were really going gangbusters with that.
And without giving anything away to anybody who hasn't been watching the whole thing, I love the fact that, humanity in general is in a bad place in the Expanse, right? I mean, humanity is on Earth, and they're on Mars, and they're in the Belt, and they all hate each other. I mean, they hate each other from the beginning. They hate each other throughout this war. It's just bad. And there's like a glimmer of hope that, you know what, we might have to like come together and kind of like help each other now. And so it's kind of a interesting way that things are coming out of this. So very happy with that whole thing. Without having read the books, very happy with how it's panning out.
It's very, very great.
Nice.
Jessica Jones, I enjoyed that. She's a complete utter mess, and I love her neuroses and everything like that. Gotham, I think, has just continued to impress me so much. Season after season, the production quality, the acting quality. I am so high on that series, almost more than any other of the geek shows out there. In the beginning, it was like, how are you going to write Batman without Batman? And in the end, it's like, you guys just did it right and picked the right ways of doing everything. And it might be my favorite of like the ongoing like mainstream television geek shows that are out there. That with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which continues to tie into the movies, of course, and everything, and having a great time with that, and that has ended. And as I've said in the past, we are in a great place in geek TV. So it's hard not to watch any of these shows, because they're expanding, what has ever been done on TV for us geeks, and they're just fantastic. So
they're awesome.
Excited about that. Killjoys just started up too.
I know, it's back.
Final season, it's back.
Yeah.
Watch the first one. They kind of did a prequel, almost a prequel episode, or they're talking about how the main characters got together, which is kind of cool. I can't wait to see what they're going to do now and finish. This is the final season, right? Because the last time we spoke on the end of last year, 2017, you said they stole Dark Matter's last season. They gave the combined funding to Killjoys, So we're not getting any more dark matter, but getting one season of Killjoys, which is kind of cool.
That's okay. Dark Matter, I think, had a better plot to develop on, but they never did anything with it. So they kind of deserved where they ended.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think Killjoys is the better show in general. So if you had to save one, they saved the right one, and it's doing a good job, and I'm doing a good job, and I'm happy with that. And I have not started Luke Cage yet. Excited about that, of course, because I enjoyed the first season.
I'm enjoying the second season of Luke, so I think you're in for a treat. I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yep. Good stuff.
So that's where I stand, I think. And, we're in the summer doldrums. So I look to you guys, to help me out to find.
You're doing a pretty good job, Steven. I think you got most of the big stuff. But Craig, what are you watching, Craig? What is Steven missing?
What does he miss? I don't really know that he missed that much. I mean, his list. In fact, he's got everything on his list. So so I would agree with everything he just said. Yeah. What about you, Russ? You got anything to bounce off of that?
Sure. Well, let's see what I've been doing. I did.
You got almost all different shows.
Yes. So, book 3 of Powder Mages. Also, I'm listening. So my oldest daughter now, and this is scary. Longtime listeners would be like, "What? She's taking driver's ed now."
Oh my God.
I know. So on the way to driver's ed, because to take summer's driver's ed in southern New Hampshire here, it's like a 40-minute drive to this place. So I'm taking her back and forth right now. And so we're listening to, for some reason, she woke up one day and realized she never read the Harry Potter books. Wow. And so she's like, I'm going to read those. And I threw them, and I said, well, since we're driving, why don't we listen to them on Audible, because the narrator is amazing for the Harry Potter books, and we are loving it now. So we're in Prisoner of Azkaban right now, and just having a great time. Meanwhile, for TV shows, so in case you don't have enough stuff to watch, Steven, and if you like animated series at all, we just finished the latest season of Voltron, which was rebooted on Netflix and is amazingly good.
Really?
So if you enjoyed The Last Airbender, you should watch Voltron on Netflix. Also, you should know that the guys who did The Last Airbender, the band is getting back together, or at least some of them are, and they're doing a new Netflix series called The Dragon Prince coming out this fall, which looks incredibly good. Meanwhile, if you want to watch a series that is, you can't believe why it's animated because it's great, watch The Hollow on Netflix. It's also an animated series with 4 kids who wake up, don't know where they are, don't know how they got there, and they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Meanwhile, there's like magic and fantasy creatures and all kinds of craziness. That's a really good show worth watching. Watching Luke Cage. And then the other one, so these are all kind of, because these are shows I'm watching with my teenagers who are teenagers, but they're still like, hey, we like animated shows. We also started watching, my brother recommended Troll Hunters, which is another Netflix series by DreamWorks. And this show's a little younger. Like Voltron, you can watch at any age and enjoy it. The Hollow, the same. Troll Hunters is targeting slightly younger viewers, but it's still really fun, actually. Pretty good series. And Fraser Crane, what's his name? Kelsey Grammer, voices one of the trolls, and he's amazing. He's really, really good in that series. So that's my shows. So I guess I got some animated ones to add to the list. Also,
cool.
Video games, No Man's Sky. Just started playing that. It came out on Xbox, and it's been out for a couple of years now on PC, but on PS4.
Really controversial.
It's controversial. It was a Kickstarter, and it didn't quite do everything they said it was going to do in the beginning, but now it kind of does. I'm really enjoying it. It's sort of a survival game, but then as you discover the universe, you basically wake up as sort of like you're in a spacesuit on a planet, and your spaceship has crashed nearby, and you don't remember who you are. And you start to discover, but the thing that's interesting about the game is it's a procedurally generated universe with over like a quintillion planets or something crazy. So and because it's all procedurally, all the life forms are random, the plants are, everything you find is sort of interesting. But it's a really interesting game. I'm enjoying it so far. And my youngest daughter just got into Octopath Traveler, which is an amazing Japanese RPG, or JRPG, as those folks that know say, on the Switch, which is also fantastic. Very artfully done Japanese RPG style game. So that's all keeping us entertained during the summer doldrums. What about you, Craig? So did you miss anything? We cover everything on your list?
No, I went to videos. Yeah, no books. I listened to the last Lady of the Last Witcher novel.
Yep.
Came out, and I think it's the last based on how it went. But I don't think I liked it. It did a lot of things that I don't really like. It seemed kind of rushed plot wise, and so it was a disappointing end to me to that series that I loved for years. That I loved as they rolled out those novels. And then if you're a longtime listener, you've heard that I really loved that musical Come From Away on Broadway. That was about Gander, Newfoundland, on September 11th. And so there was a book that was written about some of these stories. So I went and I got that and I listened to that and I loved that book. That was a crazy, crazy book and a crazy event. And then I had recommended to me many times a book called I Am Legion, parentheses, I Am Bob, close parentheses, by Dennis Taylor. Yeah. That sounds.
Oh.
And I have a problem with it in that it takes a full credit and it's only 9 hours long. And in fact, so far, 2 people I've highly recommended it to have said no, just because it's like, and I would have been there too if I was just in the right mood to splurge on a short book with my credit. But I am loving it, and it was bizarre because it's the same narrator as the 9/11 book. So I was like, he went from talking about. Yes, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. Continue. I apologize.
And so he went from talking about these really serious, heart-wrenching events to I walked into the main convention in the sci-fi convention and was hit by a terrible odor because so many of these people hadn't washed. I was like, wow. So it's I Am Legion, I Am Bob is a phenomenal book, and it's actually a trilogy so far that does all it's got lots of geek culture references in it. But if you're a fan of AI, if you're a fan of space exploration, if you're a fan of weird space exploration theories or panels, the kind of panels you can go to at sci-fi conventions where real military people and scientists and things like that will tell you about these wacky theories, I Am Legion, I Am Bob is definitely the story for you. The series is actually called the Boboverse.
Yep.
Series.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, Craig, this is funny that I didn't even remember this, that I have been listening to the Boboverse series, but I've been doing it like in my car on longer trips with my girlfriend. So I don't listen to it very often. And, you kind of have to do that little catch up thing is, when you have like several weeks or a month between like listening to things. And I've gotten through the first 2.5, basically. I'm in the third book, and I think it is phenomenal. And I'm not a huge reader. I mean, I don't get to read a lot physical books, and I don't get to listen to a lot of books. But everybody that I know that listened to the Boboverse, and it's just an amazing romp of a future Earth where some catastrophe occurs. And an AI comes to the rescue. Let's just put it that way for now. And you find out about how humans can expand into the various portions of our galaxy. I'm really enchanted by the entire series of books. So big thumbs up to the Boboverse and I Am Legion and I Am Bob books.
Well, now I got to go read this. You guys are making this sound really good.
You would like it, I'm pretty sure, especially techno people who kind of really dig this thing too.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. And then movies Ant-Man and the Wasp and Jurassic World, which I don't think Russ, have you seen Jurassic World?
No.
Fallen Kingdom?
No. Was it good?
I liked it, but it's very much the end is very reminiscent of another movie franchise that happened within the last 5 years. And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody by saying anything beyond that, other than I'm very curious to have a conversation with somebody about that when they see it and have a similar reaction. But I mean, I liked it. It was fun, and the special effects are amazing, and some fun story. And that, however, is my achievements now. Yeah.
Woo, that is a lot of achieving. Are we all achieved out?
We're achieved out.
We're achieved out.
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present... Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep. Seriously, Wakeland, I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap. Hey, you're lucky we still use you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another App of the Ep. This time around, I've got another AAA title. I missed this thing. It's actually been out for a couple of years. No Man's Sky. And I did not buy it on PC. I did not buy it on PS4. But it just recently, this month, came out on Xbox. And also, at the same time it was launched on Xbox, they released No Man's Sky Next update, which was free to anyone who had purchased it on PC or PS4, and it added a bunch of depth to the game. Now, the original concept for No Man's Sky, as I understood it, because I haven't played the prior version, I'm only playing the current one, is sort of survival game meets space exploration meets galactic economy, something in the middle there. So I don't know what the old version had. All I can tell you is the new version is pretty darn cool. So the premise of this game, you kind of start off and you're on an alien world, and you're in a spacesuit, and you've got some tech on you, so you can do some basic mining and resource gathering. But kind of like Minecraft, like things are going wrong, but you don't have any memory of what's going on. And over a few sort of tutorial things, you find your spaceship. You need to repair it. You're not even sure it's yours. You don't even remember anything about it. And so in the beginning, it's kind of like a lot of the survival games, just trying to stay alive, find resources, essentially, avoid the dangerous elements, which on some planets is radiation, some planets is fire, some planets is toxic fumes. But what's interesting is this game has got a procedurally generated universe. And so it's massive, like literally hundreds of thousands, if not billions or millions, or whatever the number is, massive, unexplorable number of worlds, right? What they've added in the latest version, among other things, is multiplayer. So up to 4 players, or maybe more, can join up and explore in each other's universes. You can name planets and name elements. But what I really like about it is how much of the game, there is a strong story. So at first, I never got involved in No Man's Sky because I thought it was kind of like Minecraft in that it was just purely build stuff, survive, but there was no compelling story. But in the latest version, there actually is an interesting story. There's mysteries to be solved. There's things happening, and all of a sudden you go from trying to stay alive on a planet to, oh my God, as you first take off, wait, there's star bases out here? Wait, there's space fleets? Wait, I can have freighters and build up whole trading alliances and bases on multiple planets and economies. And it sort of turns into, all of a sudden you're playing like a Civilization /4X game, but you're still at the granular level of space, survival /explorer guy. So it's a really interesting game. Both my daughters are completely sucked into it. We're constantly bouncing in each other's universes, which is just, I still haven't really exactly figured out how the game synchronizes on universes. So each player, when you start the game, you create your own sort of universe. But if I join, so I started first, and then my daughter joined me. And so some of the planets I named exist in her universe. And when I join in to her universe, some of the planets I named are there, but then also some of the planets she named are there. And then they join my universe when I'm playing solo. So it's kind of interesting. And then if my other daughter joins, then I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly when it decides to synchronize the universes and when it doesn't. But it's really interesting, and it's very cool. You can jump in and trade and do other things too. So very interesting game. If you like, if you're not a big survival game fan, but you like 4X games, or you like Discovery, or you like stories with mysteries, there's something in here for everyone. And it's a really, really interesting game. And it sounds to me, based on some of the reviews and other things I read, that the first version of this game, released a year and a half ago or so, didn't really hit the mark of where they were going. But it seems like now the game has fully realized the vision of the initial creators. And this is a really interesting game. And if you're into space exploration, like I said, I'm not even sure it's a survival game, but I'm not sure that doesn't last long. Pretty sure after a while, you're really into like discovery, mysteries, finding out it's got like something for everyone here. There's references to everything. Really interesting game. I can't say enough good things about it. Check it out, No Man's Sky, on just about every platform known to humanity right now.
Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the Ep, a segment in which, hey, Less of that, more just getting on with the show. Seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class.
Hey, welcome back. And since we have Stephen on the show, so Stephen, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, guys, I'm really excited about being here. It is wonderful. Thank you again.
Well, we like to ask our guests here for ideas, right, Craig? Ideas of things we should discuss. And Stephen had an exceptionally good idea, one we've actually managed to never do in 240 episodes of the show, which I was pretty impressive.
And I wanted to do it before we got to this show, or at least on this show. So it's good. Good timing.
Good timing, right. Also, Craig is enjoying dinner, so if you hear him chomping, that's what's happening.
I'm trying to hide the sound. Thank you, Rob.
He's trying to hide the full mouth talking. But,
yes, I've wanted to do this for at least 2
Russ
years now.
Russ has got to out him. I love it. I love
Right,
it.
so anyway, yes,
I got to give props. You said, Stephen, what do we want to talk about? What are we going to do? And my director of administration for Stronghold Games, Pauline Milano, I said, Pauline, what should I talk to him about? And she's like, boom, how about relationships and all the stuff that you've done to create and foster great relationships within the industry? I think that might be good. And she's like throwing ideas. I'm like typing and I'm like, great, done. And I sent it to you guys and you liked it. So
I love
set
it.
us off.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things I'd like to talk about here, and this is true. This is dangerously close to a life lesson. So
it's a life lesson in a lot of ways.
It really is, because this is valuable no matter what you do. But I thought it was really interesting to talk to you, Stephen, about this, since you are a big time, big wig, well beloved publisher. Is that fair to say? I feel like it is.
I thought you were going in a different direction. I thought you were going to call him a schmoozer.
Well, he definitely schmoozes. Also.
I'm a schmoozer. There's no doubt that I'm a schmoozer.
But I thought it'd be interesting. So first, maybe the place to start is to kind of talk about why relationships are important to a publisher specifically, and then maybe go into the different kinds of relationships you try to foster with the different kinds of people. And then once we kind of determine that, then maybe we can talk about how you go about building a relationship. But Stephen, what is key about these relationships? What do you think about when you're thinking about building relationships and really getting to know people?
You certainly can publish board games, without having a relationship with almost anyone other than the designer that originally gave you the game, assuming it came from outside, and the printer, and then the person who's going to distribute your game. So you could do that if you wanted. But if you really want to grow your company in a material way, if you really want your company to set sail on a larger scale, on an international scene, creating relationships, and it's a very broad stroke term, and we'll talk about it more individually, creating these relationships with various segments of gaming, and that would be the gaming industry, that would be the gaming media, that would be gamers, and that's going to be the biggest one. Hopefully we'll hit on that one, maybe even toward the end. Putting yourself out there and creating these relationships with all of these different types of people that touch games and hopefully will touch your games is critical to success. And like you said, it's sort of a life lesson. This is going to be applicable to you regardless of the type of business, really. If you've got a consumer-facing business, especially as we do in the board gaming industry, these kind of concepts should not be alien to you, and hopefully you can use some of this in what you're trying to accomplish as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, even outside of board gaming, I do think about my day job. So much of buying decisions and business interactions, as much as we like to believe, they are based on highly logical and really well thought out reasoning. Many, many times, emotion influences your decision making more than you think. And so how you feel about someone, or if you have a relationship with someone, can be really valuable.
Absolutely. Those are very, very, very strong words. And right. So what you project to someone else, i.e. what relationship you've created with them, is going to pay back to you in spades in the end. And lest lest anybody believe that this is coming from a non-sincere place or a phony place. Anybody who knows me deeply knows that what I project to you guys or to anybody that we're going to be talking about is 100% Stephen Buonocore. This is the way I am in real life. So yeah, you could turn on and turn off the whole like, okay, I'm going to be this way in business, I'm going to be this way in personal. I've personally have the strong belief that what comes around goes around, and the better you can create relationships with everyone in life, including, of course, in your business, the better things are going to go for you in the end.
Yeah, it's not about being fake. You have to be who you are, right? To be sincere.
Absolutely.
But you have to make the time to build the relationships, and that's where it gets hard, right? So
yeah, and some people just can't do that. Some people don't have, or they don't have the wherewithal to do it. They don't have the social skills, maybe on some level. They don't find it part of their nature to do it.
Right.
I do, thankfully, and it has paid off for me to be able to do this.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about the relationships that you found. Like, where do you focus, since you can't obviously, well, you kind of do have, you're a very gregarious person, so you obviously have lots of relationships, but clearly you want to focus a little bit and be a little strategic about where you spend your time. So what are some of the relationships you proactively, as you were building Stronghold Games, you were thinking about how to do this? Like, where were you really focusing?
I mean, so it's funny. One of the original things, because I was a gamer, I was you two guys, I was everybody else that's listening in on this podcast, just like you. And I was sitting there and I was gaming and enjoying myself. And I had this crazy idea to like start a game company. And I was listening to podcasts. So the first thing I did was to reach out after I created the company and had a game ready. I reached out to you guys. You were the first podcast that I got myself on back in 2010. I don't know if you know that, but you were the first podcast that I got myself on.
I did not know that either. That's interesting.
So the Podfather, which I have been I've become to be known as, started with the D6 generation on, I don't remember what episode it was. It was so long ago.
I got to go look it up.
But anyway, yeah, but we should look at there in the show notes or something like that. But anyway, so really, to me, it was an obvious thing. If I was going to be trying to reach gamers, right? Okay, so I'm a nobody right now, and I'm trying to reach out to gamers. So, and I'm a gamer, and what do I do when I'm not gaming? Well, I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm listening to the D6 generation, and I'm listening to the Dice Tower. And I'm like, anybody who would spend more of their free time when they're not gaming, simply listening to a bunch of jambonis talking about the games they're playing, would obviously be part of my core demographic. So I went out immediately and I started fostering relationships with you guys and with Tom. The thing with Tom is great because, we almost immediately started this silly faux rivalry. By the way, have you seen the pie in the face?
I have not.
Oh, all right. Very quick segue. At Dice Tower Con, which was like last weekend, Tom challenged me to a Lupin Louis rematch because I crushed him recently at Looping Louis.
Yeah.
And we did it live in front of like 150 people, and I beat him again, and the loser was to get a pie in the face. And with great aplomb, Tom not only lost, he took the pie in the face.
What flavor?
It tasted delicious. It tasted delicious. It was whipped cream.
Oh, okay.
It was just whipped cream. I was eating it off of him. It was amazing.
See, that's
anyway.
I had no idea Dice Tower Con. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Don't go there. But yes,
Really?
it was amazingly funny. But anyway, having these relationships, silly ones, faux rivalries with Tom, and other silly things I do on otherwise, and just friendly ones with like guys like you, has gone a long way for people to hear my voice and to hear that I'm a regular person. I'm just like them. and of course for me to get out and talk about our games more.
Awesome. And by the way, that was episode 93, Stephen, December 2011. when you first appeared.
Look at that.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Look at you.
Pretty old school.
Very
Craig, that
nice.
was also when we reviewed the second edition of the Game of Thrones board game. That's how long ago that was.
That was a long time ago.
Wow, that's excellent.
So that's awesome. So clearly getting relationships with podcasters and people who, and I think that was pretty forward thinking, Tom, because other than really the Dice Tower at that time, podcasts were not quite as well, established as they are now. Right. So it was a little more, it wasn't as guaranteed as a maybe a play as it might be, maybe seem a little more obvious today. Right.
There certainly was no Dice Tower network, for instance.
Right,
It was just the Dice Tower, and there was just the D6 generation. There were just these individual podcasts, but I hit the big ones because I was listening to them. I hit the big ones, and I got myself in front of them, and I established a relationship with all you guys.
Well, that was cool. Now, beyond podcasting, though, how else did you think about where else did you want to go?
In general, the greater game media always came up. I mean, that goes back to like Dice Tower Network as it evolved to make sure that they were always on top of the news. ICV2 has become a very big thing in the industry to ensure that your press releases got out there. We maintain a specific press release list so that everybody who's part of the gaming media always ensures that they get our stuff. And of course, meeting with these same people and getting in front of them is always an important thing too. So that's a tangent or an offshoot to podcasting. It's also those who maintain the media portion of the industry.
Got it. Cool. That makes sense. And how do you now those folks? Do those folks run in the same circles as podcasters? Or how do you run into those? I mean, a lot of podcasters, we go to all the same conventions, but does the gaming meet, does ICV2 go to Gen Con and stuff? Are they there?
They do. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you elaborate a little more on what ICV2 is?
Oh, so sorry. You didn't know. Okay. ICV2.com is it's a great website. I call them out a lot, and I get a lot of the news of the industry from them. You can go there and check them out. They consolidate geek news.
Yeah.
Basically, not only board games and card games, but the greater gaming hobby. They go into geek culture. They talk about the movies. They've got a lot of the stuff that we like to do. They maintain the news of that. So it's generally game media. And I use that for myself. I use that a lot just to stay on top of what other things are happening in geek culture and in board gaming. In fact, I use it when I do my podcast, which is Board Games Insider. So if you're not listening to the D6 generation, you can pick up and listen to Board Games Insider with Ignacy Chevicek of Portal Games and Stephen Buonocore of Stronghold Games, which we do a bi-weekly podcast as well. And we talk about the industry and how you can get into the industry, and we take questions and things like that. So ICV2 is a very good industry resource for news and things like that.
I think it sounds familiar to me, probably because from movies, I think.
Yeah,
there you go.
They're very well. Yeah, they're very well known. Cool. So that makes sense. And I think now, so you're getting obviously podcast game media is sort of the same, two sides of the same coin, right? If you can build those relationships, get access to the writers and the podcasters, obviously they'll you're more likely to get promoted. What are some other areas when you look beyond the media, when you look beyond promotion, where do you look?
Yeah, to really grow the company, what needs to happen is that you need to have relationships within the industry. Now, obviously, maintaining good relationships with other publishers in North America is fine and wonderful, and we do, and everybody. So a lot of people don't believe how good our relationships are. That we, after we are, because we are competitors, right? We are friendly competitors. But like after the day is over at a convention, you're going to find us all hanging out together and having a beverage at the big bar on 2 if we're at Origins, or at one of the local places at Gen Con, et cetera. We all hang out together. We all have the same desire to grow the industry. So making a relationship with the domestic publishers is nice. You can share information with them. You can find out if they have somebody who you might need for your organization, if they know somebody who's good that has left somebody, you can share information and people and things like that. But even bigger than that is what I've done on the international side. And this has taken Stronghold from being just a company who can bring out, a game or 2 or 3 or 4 games a year, taking them from the ground up, to being one that can constantly have a cycle of releases, because all of our international partners, I have many international partners, have their own games in their own countries, and they need worldwide distribution because they don't have that. So we license games from them. We've created the relationship with them that they trust in us. They see what we're doing. We meet with them at least once a year at Essen, if not multiple times a year. Sometimes they come to Gen Con. They go to the Gathering of Friends. We meet with them. We share a good time together. They trust us. And then we get their games. And that has taken Stronghold from a company that can do a handful of games per year to a company that can do 25 games a year. Almost a game every other week is kind of what we do right now. I'll give a shout out to some of my strategic partners out there, if you don't mind. 2F Spieler, that's Freedom and Freeze's company. Spielworks, Uli Blenneman. Lauta Pellet in Finland. We've done Flamme Rouge with them. We've done Whoosh with them recently. Many more games coming with them. We have... my goodness, we have Edition Spiel Visa. They've been great with us now in some recent releases, Noria and the Uwe Rosenberg series of games, Cottage Garden and Indian Summer and Spring Meadow. So having these partnerships has enabled Stronghold to truly become one of the premier companies of the industry, because we can now have a stream of games coming out virtually constantly. And those things are all due to the relationships that I've created with them over time and consciously tried to do, going out there, finding them, getting to meet them, getting to understand what we could do for them, and then signing the agreements with them once they were comfortable that we can handle their games.
I want credit for not singing anything from The Sound of Music after he said all that.
The hills are alive with the sound of music. Never mind. I think I've sung on this podcast before. I better stop.
I think you may have.
But I love singing. But anyway, that's all of those international partners are very key to our growth. We end up co-publishing the games with them. Recently, it's been really cool. Recently, due to my relationship with the people that run the Spiel in Essen, right? What we call Essen is really called the Spiel.
Right.
So the people who run that, it's a company called Mers Verlag. Due to my relationship with them and their knowledge of Stronghold Games, they've actually asked me to sit on a panel at Essen at the Spiel, on basically international game publishing. It's going to be German publishers. It's going to be American publishers. It's going to be published from around the world, sitting and talking with with people about the state of the industry and publishing internationally, which is a pretty cool thing. And the only reason that's occurred is because I know them. They're good people. They recognize Stronghold as being a player in the industry and that I'm approachable and that I want to be on such a panel. So all those things together, they've come out and asked me to be on the panel.
That's awesome. And I think one thing you mentioned there, Steve, when you're talking about the other publishers and this idea that, you know, some people feel like, well, since you're competitors, you must not talk, right? I think it's really important to build those relationships, especially in places where it appears there's competition, but they're really, but it may not be as competitive as you think. So, for example, when we first started out this podcast, Craig and I were both pleasantly surprised. Several established podcasts were very welcoming and did not in any way look at us as a threat or, some kind of thing to be squished. Instead, they helped us out. And we've tried to do the same to other up and coming podcasts. And I think, technically we're competitors, just like different TV shows compete, because there's only so many hours in the day and you're only going to listen to so many things. But really, in the end, I think you can learn a lot. You can help each other a lot. And I don't, I think, especially in an industry as small as this, I think it's really more about those relationships and learning than it is about trying to push people out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. And what Steven said also about it being all about everybody's interested in growing the hobby. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're doing this because, speaking more specifically about podcasters now, we're doing this whole podcasting thing because we love it. If you get into podcasting because you want to be the biggest podcast, you're probably not going to make it, first of all, because there's so many different ways to judge who's the biggest that, like, it just doesn't really matter. It doesn't actually have any sort of functional definition or useful definition. But more importantly, that's going to come across in your podcast. I think the thing that we hear the most often about people who listen to our podcast is, you guys you're positive and you're nice and you obviously love games, and that's what comes across. And I think that's what's going to make or break a podcast, and luck, because there's just so many podcasts out there now. But I think the key is the motivation behind it. And the motivation behind a successful podcast, meaning you love games, you love talking about games with other people who love games, lends itself more to a collaborative environment with other podcasters and all these, and a bunch of the guys like Rodney and whatnot and Tom Vassell, who have sort of, made that translation into video. It's coming. I think it's all coming from the same sort of genuine place of why we're doing what we're doing and what we're in there to get out of it, as opposed to, like some sort of corporate bigwig guy who's always looking at the numbers or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And it translates directly to the publishers and what we do together. We are friendly competitors. But really, the funny thing is about it, if you think about it a little bit deeper, we compete really only when we're trying to sign the same game. That's a little bit of a competition. And it happens occasionally that we're both trying to sign the same thing. But otherwise, what we're competing for is the mind share. I had this conversation this week with a friendly competitor. We're competing for mind share of gamers, getting visibility of our games out there, and getting people to talk about our stuff. So the more I can foster these relationships means the more that people will want to think about Stronghold Games. And right. I guess that kind of leads into a little bit the fans. The fans are the single most important thing that I do to try to create relationships with. Now, obviously, there are tens of thousands of gamers out there, right? And, then that many, hopefully, people who know Stronghold Games. But for me, for Stephen Buonocore, to be in every one of the major conventions and many of the not so major conventions and even more down the road, and to hit the trade shows, and to be Buonocore at these events is, to me, the most important thing I can do, because that gives people the concept that, wow, he's a good guy. He's one of us. He wants to be among us. And he's just doing something that he loves the same way that we game and we do what we love. And that's what I've done, from the beginning. Always be out there and always be talking, shaking hands, kissing babies, the whole thing, being with the fans, being with the gamers, so that they understand that, Stronghold Games is a good place to be.
Well, I think it's really, I think that's a great point, Stephen. And I think it really is, passion sells, right? So you can tell when someone's passionate about what they do. And this is another one of those business life lesson things, right? So if you're in business with somebody, you're about to be a partner with somebody, you're about to buy a product, and you see that person super passionate about the product they make, you just know they're not doing it to make a buck. They're doing it because they really believe in what they've made, right? And you have, when you're there having that passion, it becomes contagious and people get excited about buying your product. And again, it goes back to that confidence level where, they haven't played the game yet. They're not certain, but with that much passion going on, it's probably going to be fun. So I'm going to try it out, right? And I think that's a big a big part of the formula. And it's certainly, I think,
Right.
you see it at your booth. I mean, you go to the Stronghold booth and you're just energized. You're going. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday at the last day of the convention. Everybody's exhausted. You're still there, full of energy. And I think that does a lot for what you guys do.
It's gotta be exhausting to be Steven. That's what
It's not easy being me. No, it's not, but it's rewarding. You know what I mean? It is rewarding on a lot of levels to be there. And yeah, obviously, I've left my booth like once because I felt ill and I had to lay down. It was that in the 100 conventions I've been to or something like that. And I want to be there, and I want to be there all the time. I have to leave, of course, sometimes to take meetings and this and that, of course. But you got to be there, and you got to be there, visible for people to engage with you. It's so important on every level.
That was a Muppet music cue that I ignored. I just want credit for these. I'm just saying.
Muppet music cue.
It's not easy being Buonocore.
That one he got. Nice. All right.
Yeah. That was good.
Do you ever, was there any other categories we should talk about before? I do want to spend, before we run out of time, I do want to ask you a little bit about some of the techniques you use to sort of build these relationships with total strangers, because I think that's sort of the thing that's the most intimidating to people. Like, especially when you think about most gamers, they're introverts, right? I mean, it's just the nature of people who game generally. And it's really hard for introverts, particularly. But even extroverts, sometimes they go about it wrong, or they get off on the wrong foot. And so I'd love to hear your tips, because you're obviously very good at it. It's something that comes natural to you. But it's also the kind of thing that with practice, you can get better at it. So what are some of these techniques that you've kind of found over the years kind of work to break the ice and get people sort of, talking to you and kind of getting at ease and really being conversational?
I think you kind of started talking about it a couple of minutes ago. You said it's the passion that you exude for something, and the belief that what you're doing, whatever it is, in this case it's publishing games, but the belief that what you're doing is exactly the best thing for the consumer. So I truly believe that the games that I'm putting out are I would say they're best in class. This game is the Flamme Rouge is like the best racing game. Is it truly the best? It's certainly one of the best. Is Spring Meadow the best polynomial placement game? I don't know. It's the best. It's certainly one of the best. And I can go down the list. Terraforming Mars is the number 4 game. I mean, we went out and we searched for that game and we loved it. We did some extra testing on it. We continued developing it. In the end, it's that good of a game, and we believe that strongly. And I think that the fans have recognized that. So being passionate about what you do and being forward with people, it's hard, it's intimidating, and it's not easy for some people to just do that. But that's the best I can give you for a way to do it. Believe in what you do and do the best at it, and your passion for that thing is going to shine through to the gamer, to the final consumer.
Yeah, I would say you're 100% right, Steven. You can be good at it with crap product if that's like the personality that you have.
Right.
We're talking about people who, like, as Russ said, like gamers in general, maybe, and it's a bit of a stereotype to say this, but there's a little bit of truth in many stereotypes that many of us are a little more introverted. Get me out from behind this mic where I have to look people in the eye, and it's extremely difficult for me. And I think the key to sort of segueing into making that into more of a strength is to stick with what you're comfortable with and what you're confident with, as you said, Steven. If you've got a passion for something, everything else sort of follows.
Yeah, and some people aren't good at speaking in public. I mean, that kind of goes to that. And the funny thing is I've always in my life before Stronghold, I always thought I was absolutely horrible. And I still don't think I'm a good true public speaker. I'm really good. What I'm really good at is talking to you guys, right? Talking to like the one-on-ones or the one-on small groups, the one-on like 1,200 people. I'm really don't believe I'm good at that at all. But if if you can stick with what you're kind of good at and try to push yourself past those hard parts, it could pay off in spades in the end. And I think that's what I've kind of done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to add, I think one of the things that, because I'm also not good at this, I know, which is people, I tell people this and they don't believe me because I talk on a podcast for gajillions of hours, but I am not good in a one-on-one. And for my real job, I had to sort of start becoming good at it. And one of the bits of advice, which everybody tells you, is ask people about themselves. And the advantage is, and that's the key to getting a conversation started. And the advantage you have as a gamer is in a gaming environment is you have ready-made conversation. Just start asking them about themselves. How is the convention going for you? What's your favorite thing you found here? What's your favorite kind of game? And as they start to tell you that, ask them.
God, Russ, I thought you cared. You mean every time you thought it was a trick?
No, it's not a trick. It's a way to get me to know you. So what I'm doing is I'm learning about you, and then the conversation will turn more interesting because I'll ask you more things about what we're talking about, and then we'll get deeper. And you'll ask me questions, and it's great. And now we've got a conversation going instead of just standing each other and going, "Weather's nice," right? Like that's what gets it going. So if you're sitting there and you're oh my God, there's Stephen Buonocore. I love his games. I want to talk to him. Start ask him stuff. Say, Stephen, what's games doing best for you at the convention today? What's how's your, and just get it going. Now you just gave yourself some, instead of being like tongue tied on what to say to Stephen Buonocore, you're like, oh, you got a conversation going. And then of course, Stephen's amazing. So he's going to talk to you about it, and you're going to have a nice conversation with Stephen, and it's not going to be awkward. Right.
I got two things to mention about that. You're 100% right. Always ask another person about themselves or about their thing, and it completely brings them to the conversation, and then they'll engage you and back and forth. It's a great, we don't want to start the dating game here, but it's like a dating technique too. If you're on a date with somebody and you don't know them, you say, well, tell me about yourself and where did you grow up and stuff like that. So you break the ice by having them start talking to you about themselves. So absolutely, anybody out there, please come up to me and ask me, about my life or about my games. Absolutely do it. And it's no problem. Funny story is on this is that at Origins, we have to have demo people right all the time. And we get them through the Envoy program. And that's, by the way, big shout out to Envoy. They are a group that, and you can go to, by the way, you can go to dexenvoy.com, DEXenvoy.com, and learn all about them. But in general, they will give you games for free as long as you go demo them. And we are a huge supporter of this. And we have hundreds, if not 1,000 Knights of the Stronghold running around the country demoing our games. And that's helped us quite a bit. So they go out and they get us demoers for the various conventions. Origins, obviously, recently is a big one. So someone there was a first-time demoer for Stronghold. And they came up to me and they were like, oh my God, I can't believe you're Stephen Buonocore and I'm here talking to you. And I'm like, really? It's okay. I'm the same as you. I'm a gamer. I just happen to own this company. We're going to have a great time. Tell me about what games you know the best. And I just talked to them about it, took them off the ledge of that. And then they calmed down and everything was cool. The funny thing, the extra funny thing is they post on Facebook, oh my God, I just met Stephen Buonocore. It was so amazing. And all of my crazy friends said, tell me where the bad man, show me on the bear where the bad man touched you. I'm so sorry that you had to experience Buonocore. All of my friends from New Jersey went through this, and she was like, what happened? I thought you had good friends. Like, no, they're just crazy.
It's crazy people.
Yeah, they just.
Oh my God, I met Stephen Buonocore. Everybody's met Stephen Buonocore. It's no big deal.
It was really fun. So anyway,
that's awesome.
That was my little.
That's awesome. Yeah. It is surreal when those sorts of things happen. I think too. Still interesting. So Stephen, one technique I noticed you use, and I wondered if this ever gotten you into trouble. So you do this thing where the you've been Buonocored technique. You know what I'm talking about? So Craig,
of course.
Craig, do you know about this? Yeah. You know about this, right?
I thought I did, but
so Stephen will pretty much kiss on the cheek,
What?
right?
Yeah, well, let's put that in full context. So
See, there's no good way to say this. So, Steve, let's why don't you share how that started? Because it is definitely a relationship builder if done correctly.
Yeah. About 5 years ago.
It is not for the beginner.
Yeah, it's not for the beginner.
Right.
5-6 years ago, at Board Game Geek Con, an already good friend of mine, Stephanie Straw, was there, and I saw her and I gave her a big hug and I kissed her on the cheek, and it was wonderful. And she took a selfie of us, and it was great. And then I took another selfie of us and me kissing her on the cheek again. And he goes, my convention, my Board Game Geek convention has started. I've been Buonocored. So after that, it's always been a thing about, when you get kissed on the cheek, you've been Buonocored. So I now have people coming up to me, not the other way around. I have now people coming up to me at conventions saying, I want to be Buonocored. Or for my really good friends, people I've known for years at conventions, I'm an ethnic Italian New Yorker. I'm huggy and feely, but of course we only do this with our very good friends at the conventions when we meet them. Not the average person. They don't have to worry. They don't have to worry about
jumping out at them,
something like that. But it's been that's been a cute little thing that we've had going, being Buonocored and stuff like that. So it's been a good little promotion. And literally, I have the same like people who are not like close friends. They're like not nearly as close as you guys, but people who see me at the convention, they're like, "I'm here to be Buonocored." I'm like, "Absolutely." So we take a selfie, then we'll take a selfie of me kissing them, and then they'll post it on Twitter, and they'll say like, "Hey, hashtag Buonocored" and stuff like that. So that's been a lot of fun for me to do.
Yeah, I was just trying to wonder. I was just wondering if Eric Summerer asked for that, or is it like a hashtag Me Too situation? That's what I was just trying to figure out.
Eric Summerer gets an auto kiss, and Tom Vassell gets two of them on both cheeks.
Right.
And that's the kiss of death when I do it to Tom.
Yes.
But, we actually created again, Pauline, she's a genius. She said, you're kissing all these people at conventions, especially you're kissing all these guys at conventions and all these people in general. She goes, we're going to create lip balm. I've been Buonocored. Get Buonocored lip balm. And we did. I actually did that. And I have Get Buonocored lip balm now. I'll bring some to you.
All right.
At Gen Con.
Yes.
And I'll make sure I Buonocore you and I hand you a lip balm.
All right.
For
So
it. How's that?
Will you offer? Are you coming to the D6G event on Saturday morning?
I am excited about coming to the
Okay, well, hopefully you can make it. If you can, bring some lip balm. We'll see if
I will come, and I will bring a ton of lip balm for anybody who wants to be Buonocored. You have to be Buonocored, but then, only if you ask to be Buonocored.
All right,
then you can get Buonocored.
That'd be excellent, Steve.
I love the tap dancing.
That's
you like that, huh?
That's awesome. So Stephen, is it essential then, just to kind of wrap up here, as we start to run out of time a little bit? So we've talked about the kinds of people you want to build relationships with. We talked about some techniques to get the ball rolling. How essential is it to go to these conventions and maintain all these relationships? Right, they don't just magically stay connected. You got to kind of reconnect at a pretty regular cadence, right?
You do. I mean, and with everybody we mentioned, with every single segment that we mentioned, certainly the fans, the gamers out there, you want to be there to do that. You got to go to all the major conventions, meet with those partners, meet with the other publishers that are out there, constantly stay in contact with podcasters. I mean, if you guys don't come out and ask me, which you did in this case, and you said you want to be on the last episode, one of the last episodes, I was like, absolutely. Normally I'm out there pounding the door like, guys going to be on again? I'm constantly out there trying to get back on the podcast. And I do that with everybody to maintain that relationship. You have to maintain it. You have to be out there. You have to foster it. You have to continue to stroke it. You have to play in the sandbox with everybody to make sure that you're being the forward person that you can be to promote the company and to continue doing the things that make the company grow, which is all of these little pieces that add up to the big piece of the company is known out there to everyone.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that was helpful for everyone. Do we miss any points you wanted to make, Stephen, about relationship building?
No, I think that's pretty good, man. We're good.
Awesome.
Yeah, really good.
Awesome. Well, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back with more after this.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire.
Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your total fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out everything I'm up to over at NicoleWakeland.com. Our shout out is to all of our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. Head to patreon.com/the D6 Generation and you too can support the show. Well, it is just days, I tell you, until we all pile into the car and head off to the best 4 days in gaming. That's right. It's once again time for Gen Con, where we will have our last Play by Mom, which should be quite fun. We'll be giving away tons and tons of games and the collected playtest stuff that Russ and Craig have collected over the course of the last year. And we also have a play-by-mob set up for you, which will be fun. So we're really looking forward to that. It's always a fun time for me because I like the gaming, I like the cosplaying, I like the whole nerd thing, and it's a really cool family road trip. We always enjoy getting in the car and just spending time with the kids, and things always go a little crazy and a little haywire right about the time when you get punchy, when you're driving. Not that you're tired driving, just that it's like you've been in the car for 1,000 years, or it feels that way, and you're never actually going to get to Indianapolis. You're stuck. I don't know. It feels like you're in New York somewhere, and you never, ever will get out of New York as you're driving for New Hampshire. And at that point, you get punchy, and things that shouldn't be funny or wouldn't be funny on any other day of the week become hilarious. So I look forward to the drive a lot. And we're also looking forward to the convention. Last year, my older daughter couldn't make it because she had some obligations here at home. But this year, it is the entire Wakeland clan. So it'll be me and Russ and the girls. The girls are very excited. I think they both have on top spending the allowances they've saved and birthday money that they've accumulated on things they don't even know that they want yet, which is pretty much how they look at it. I'm sure I'm going to see something I don't even know that I want today, but there's going to be stuff that I know that I want. So they're excited about that too. And of course, back to school time is coming soon for us. We go back to school the end of August. I know some kids are already in, which is crazy to me, but we start at the end of August, and that of course means you got to get some new clothes. And my daughters are the only daughters on the planet, I think, who don't really want to go to the mall and go shopping. Instead, where they want to go shopping is Gen Con, because they get all sorts of fabulous nerdy t-shirts. Rose has picked up quite a few. She picks them up at PAX Unplugged too this year that were really cute. But the big thing is to pick up cute, nerdy t-shirts with slogans and images that only their nerd friends will get. And I know T-Turtle is always a highlight for them. And they don't have to feel guilty, and neither do I, buying t-shirts. Because like, hey, back to school shopping. You can't go back to school without any clothes, kids. Let's buy some nerdy shirts. So it'll be a fun trip. We have the play-by-mob plan. We've got some fun shopping for the girls and buying all sorts of stuff. And of course, loads and loads and loads and loads of games. So we hope we see you there. And if you're traveling, safe travels to Gen Con.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. So, as you know, we've been talking about Star Wars Legion for a few episodes now. More than that, if you go back to when we were saying how much we didn't want to play it. And so you might be wondering, how did we come to the point where we're actually going to do a review? Well, we're not going to do a full review, right, Russ? What are we going to do here first? What are we thinking we're going to do?
We experimented with this idea of kind of reporting on how a game went with 40K, and people seem to really like it. So we thought, instead of doing the more formal, like, here's every single rule and here's how what's exactly in the box, it was more of a, hey, here's the game we played, here's how we thought about it, here's why we got sucked into it, and here's what we liked about it, right? So, but with color towards the actual battle we played a little more and a little less towards every single rule.
Right, yeah, but also in rule interaction. So you'll get an idea, an overall idea of the way the game plays, but more focusing on how this one particular game was influenced by all those rules. Mm-hmm. So how did we get here? Well, I think I've already mentioned it for the most part, but basically it was the terrain, A local guy, Tim, our friend of ours, was doing 3D printed terrain, the stuff I mentioned earlier in the show. And I was like, oh, I would love to have some of that stuff. But I mean, what would I play with it? Oh, I would have to play Star Wars Legion. And I mentioned that to him. I'm like, not really interested in Star Wars Legion. Oh, really? Because I have a set that I bought that I'm not going to use, so I could sell it to you for cheap. And that's how I got my first set. I was like, oh, uh-oh. And then I went and got a second set, so I would have a lot of guys, because that's how you do these FFG minis games, is you get a 2 starter sets so that you got a good core force. And then it was off to the races, because I thought this might be a good game that I could play with Russ and his brother John and our friends Joe and Pete. Something like they play games every now and then. They'll play whatever I want to play, but I need to find fun games that already have a hook for them, and Star Wars is perfect. So I started learning the game, and I started to find, you know what? Not only do I love the models, and and there were problems. I mean, they used a bigger scale, so you couldn't use your Imperial Assault guy. There were a lot of reasons we didn't really want to go into this, but once I jumped in, I was super, super excited. The quality of the models is great. They're fun. They're you can tell, you look at them, oh, you look like you're on Endor. Stormtroopers are stormtroopers. Darth Vader and Luke are great. Leia is a phenomenal model. General Veers is great. And so I got really excited. And then I wasn't planning on it being a game I played with Russ, but I had it in my car one day, and Russ was like, well, what are we going to play? And I was like, well, I do have Star Wars. And he was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And we had a really fun game, right, Russ?
I did, and I think so. 2 things. Everything Craig said about the model quality is really there. So the game looks fantastic, and one of the dangers of playing miniature games with Craig is that when he breaks out a perfectly themed table for whatever game you're playing, it's hard not to want to play the game. So Craig had this perfectly themed table even before he had painted the models. That was sort of the funny part. So this perfectly themed table, the models are there. And, I like to learn new miniature game rules. And here's the thing. Fantasy Flight has been taking learning, and they've kind of got a style now for their miniature games. And this style they use, I'm starting to really like. And it really all started for me with Descent. When Fantasy Flight did Descent, the not the grid version, but the full-on miniature game version of Descent. I'm not Descent. What am I saying? Yes, I love Descent, but I'm thinking of Dust. Dust. Yeah, Dust Warfare.
Dust.
When they did Dust, yeah. When they did Dust, they did a lot of interesting things with Dust. And over time, they've kind of taken some of the lessons they've learned and sprinkled them through their other miniature games. There's a few of them in X-Wing. There's a few of them in Rune War, a lot of them in Rune Wars. And they really took all those lessons they've learned, and they really put them into Star Wars Legion. And I couldn't help but fall in love with the way the mission selection works, the way the terrain and deployment zones work, the list building. I mean, and Craig, I don't know if you found this to be the case, but it was easier and faster for me to build the list and reference the list for like 30 and 40 model side armies in Star Wars Legion than it is in Kill Team, which is 10 to 15 models aside. Like, It's so much faster, so much simpler, yet I feel like I have more flexibility, more options, and more things I can do. So, like, they've really got it down to a science where they remove all the flexibility you want is there, but they remove the complexity. And I just really, really like that. That's what kind of sucked me in at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've done that FFG thing, right, where a couple rules stand in for a bunch of different effects. So you've got to remember fewer things like that. The card, you're buying the card. It's just like in X-Wing. So you're buying the card that's got the unit, and all the rules for that unit are on that card. And you're upgrading little cards. And what they've done, which I thought was great, the thing I didn't like about Rune Wars was that you really needed to buy these other boxed sets, because that unit's great that you get out of the starter box, but you know what? It's not really useful until you get that one card that you need that other box for, and you don't really need that other box except for that one card. Well, they went away from that with Star Wars. I think they kind of had a little more faith in their IP here. And so you could go on eBay and just get a bunch of stormtroopers from the starter boxes on eBay if you wanted to. You don't need to go spend the extra $5 to get the box, the official box off the shelf of the stormtroopers. But it's fun to have both options, but there's nothing out there that you really need. All of the stuff comes with the squad when you buy it. So a squad, say, is 4 guys. You can buy an extra guy to make it 5 guys, and each squad has 2 different special weapons that it can choose from. It can choose one of those, and when you buy the squad, it comes with all 7 of those models. So you've got everything you need. When you buy a vehicle, it comes with all the options that could go on that vehicle, and they're interchangeable. So they're kind of plug and play with your model. You don't have to magnetize anything or anything. They're just literally the weapon just plugs right in there and stays there for the whole game. So I loved that. I thought they did a great job with that. And for the most part, for me, I loved the universe already, but the rules really worked great. And it reminded me, as Russ said, it's a combination for me of the best parts of X-Wing and Rune Wars and Dust Warfare kind of all combined with the Star Wars IP to make a really, really fun, well-balanced game.
Yeah.
And so
Go, Steven.
Can I jump into the question? Yeah. So, so for us non-miniatures, true miniatures gamers, on the complexity, because you're comparing it with the other Fantasy Flight things, I guess, mostly. Mm-hmm. So how does it compare, this system, with the complexity of all of the other miniatures games you guys play? It sounds like it's on the easier scale, but just in general terms.
I would say it's much easier.
Much easier. Okay.
Yeah, and it's much easier because they've learned so much from X-Wing. So if you think about how accessible X-Wing is, right?
Mm-hmm,
So X-Wing has a lot of the depth of any other miniature game, but a lot of folks play it that aren't miniature gamers, right?
Sure.
And the magic there is each model has a card, and then there's iconography on the card that shows what kind of upgrades, which is a different deck of cards, you can apply to that, right? They've taken that and they did that with Rune Wars, and they've done that with Star Wars Legion now as well, whereas other game systems, there is so much faction flexibility. You need software to build your lists, right? So you either need a custom piece of software like War Room that Privateer Press puts out, or you need third-party army building software like Lone Wolves or others to grab the data for Games Workshop or Weird Miniatures or whatever, because there's so many different options you can choose from and so many complexities. And as I was saying earlier, it's much easier just to get going from the ground up with this because it's a much more straightforward set of options, right?
So it's the bottom end of complexity, but it sounds like it's a very well done intro game to miniatures.
Good. One of the things I like,
guys, yep,
yeah, and they did a similar thing with X-Wing, which was one of the things in X-Wing they did I thought was pretty smart. Is that even though there's kind of 3 sides in X-Wing, right? There's the Imperium, there's Rebels, and then there's the bounty hunter / random people. Mm-hmm. But even if you play an Imperial list, there's so many different things to choose from an X-Wing because you could go all TIE fighters, you could go all TIE advanced, you can go to the different genres, and there's a lot of different model interactions as well, but those model interactions work with other types of models. So you might build a light fighter list or you might build a heavier list. Well, what they've done here, which I think is really smart, is the leader you choose or leaders you choose really influences a lot of your tactical options in this game. So a core mechanic of this game is you play cards to give models orders, but also indicate who's going to have initiative. And those cards you have access to, half of them are based on your faction, but the other half are based on the leaders you choose. So if I'm playing Imperial, my Imperial options to me are very different if I'm playing General Veers than they are if I'm playing Darth Vader. So if I play Darth Vader is a powerful Jedi, but he's so many points, I won't have as much other stuff on the table.
Sure.
If I play Veers, he's more of a support piece. He himself won't be doing much damage, but my other pieces become more interesting, and I can have more models on the table. And he's kind of a vehicle guy. He kind of reminds me of War Machine a little bit. You can have a jet caster, or you can have an infantry caster. Well, this is kind of the same thing where you get different leaders, and they've only got kind of 2 out now for each faction, Craig, but they're going to crank them out. And it's really going to change the game
for the Rebels and the Emperor for the Empire.
See, perfect. So, and I think that's going to really help them make it feel like, I think it'll be kind of like War Machine in that you'll be saying, instead of just saying, I'm playing Imperium, I'm playing Rebels, it'll be more like, I'm running a Vader list, or I'm running a Leia list, or I'm running a Veers list. And that'll imply certain things because Veers will imply a certain style of play because he really amplifies vehicles, right? And that'll give you a lot more different feelings to play, even though they're really only 2 factions, which I think is really smart also.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So not too hard to set up. Craig, when what was your excitement for what style of play were you hoping to get out of the game as you started to acquire this stuff and read through the rules and see how it was going to, what were you hoping to see from it?
Well, I was hoping to see a game that was simple to understand, but offered the tactical complexity that you could rise to the level of your gameplay, right? And so, like, we're all pretty experienced, pretty decent gamers. Your brother and me and John and Joe and you and Pete, and so I didn't want it. I'm teaching them a new game every time we all get together. I wanted it to be something that they could learn quickly, but that then would grow with their understanding. And this really is that. So, like I said before, where you've got a few components that do multiple things in a lot of Fantasy Flight games, both their board games and their card games and their miniatures games. And I think you have that going here too, where you have the dice that are custom dice for the game, and they look similar to Descent dice or Imperial Assault dice, where you're looking at symbols, so bursts and critical bursts, and then surges, which have been around since probably even before Descent. But now what's happening is each troop type can do different things with surges. So even though you're rolling 1 white die for your armor save, you might convert the surge on that armor on that white die so that you've got better armor, or you've got a better weapon, or let's say there's a surge on the offensive die. One guy might make that surge a regular hit. Now, that's okay. Many characters don't make that surge anything, so it's a miss. But there's a few people who make that surge a critical hit, which means they're really, really good, and there's more likely to. So with these simple components and these cards, all of a sudden they're doing a lot more. You don't have to memorize all these different charts. You don't have to look up the weapon stats because you've got those dice, and that's what it does with surges. Those are the ranges, and boom. One thing I was concerned about, and I'll say this, is the movement tool that looks like it's right out of Armada, where it's got this jointed tool. I was like, oh my God, is that going to be finicky? Is that like a gimmick? Because that really is the using a card as your movement thing really turned me off to one game whose name completely escapes me now, that was kind of big locally for a little while. And they used a playing card that was your ranges and your movement. And I was like, oh, is it going to be finicky? But it really isn't, because you're only measuring your leader, and then everybody else kind of like gangs up. So the movement is very abstracted, which I really, really like. So I wanted a simple game that would grow with your tactical understanding, and I think you really got it. The game out of the box, you get these awesome range rulers that are segmented, although be very careful, don't bend them because they will snap. They kind of fit, 4 pieces all fit together to make one big long whippy stick if you're an old GW person. The problem is if you try to whippy it at all, it snaps, and then you're left with little bits and pieces. The movement tools are great. The terrain that it comes with, the little barricades are cool. They're very solid. And the miniature quality is great. It's a little board gamey, so you're going to have warped lightsabers and things like that to contend with. Put them in hot water for a second or use a dryer. They'll straighten out for you, but then in storage, they kind of bend a little bit again. So you just have to be careful with those. I think I would rather have them be bendy than snap, considering how small and fine the lightsabers are. If you've made them any more brittle than they are, and I think they would be snapping off. The list building, as we said, is these cards and the stats, just like X-Wing or Rune Wars or Armada, like all of these FFG games. And so we've been playing a lot. And then Russ and I last night played our first big full game all the way through, with plenty of depth to the units that you could take. And out of the box, you get Luke and Darth Vader. Luke is great. He's a Jedi. Darth Vader is brutal. but they've trade-offs as well, so you feel like you're dealing with balanced pieces. All right, Darth Vader, first of all, costs a fortune. He's 25% of your points without any war gear other than his lightsaber. And any other, you have to buy all of his force powers. You have to buy anything else that you want to buy for him. So he's going to probably cost more than 200 points. And he's slow. He's very, very slow. Whereas Luke, I think, costs 160, and he comes with a lightsaber and a blaster because, as I was saying yesterday, he's Bespin Luke. And but he can get more. He can get some force powers also. He can get some other pieces of war gear, so he could bump up as well. He's much faster. He's not as brutal. But the cool thing about the commanders, and Russ was saying that your force is going to change based on your commander, because in addition to what you've got, right, you also have we talked about the command cards yet?
No, well, that's the thing, Craig. There's really two mechanics I want to make sure we get to in this game, because I think what appeals to me about these kind of things is really good mechanics, and there are two elements to a game, and you heard it today with me in achievements. There are two elements to a game that if a game gets wrong, I'll be turned off. One of them is mission selection. If you get mission selection wrong, I don't care about your game anymore. And you've heard it with me before. We've talked about what's that? It's not fun. It's just not fun to kill every model, right? And one of the things, and the second part is, I really like in 2018. I want a good interactive turn mechanic. The reason, as you heard in achievements, I started to feel the more I played Kill Team, the more I didn't care for it. Kill Team isn't really integrated turns. It's pretend integrated turns, because one player has to commit their entire movement before the other player does. And that's not integrated turns. One of my favorite things about Beyond the Gates of Antares and Bolt Action is you don't know exactly who's got to activate when. And you can't really control it very carefully because of the dice bag mechanic. This game comes at it in a really interesting way, with this idea that you have this hand of cards that are your order cards. Each of these cards can only be used once per game, right? So you're going to choose carefully. And the card you play, and so we're simultaneously locking this card in. So Craig's going to pick a card, and I'm going to pick a card. And this card's going to indicate, it's got dots in the corner, and the lower number of the dots, the better your chance of having first initiative. But the second part is, it's going to let you give a certain number of units orders. And so if you play a card that's got a 2 on it that says you can order two units, that means that unless Craig plays a 2 or a 1, I will get to go first, and 2 of my units I can select to make sure I can choose when they activate this turn. But the rest of my units get shuffled into a pile, these little tokens, and I don't know the activation order they're going to get. And these tokens control whether it's a troop type I have to activate first, or a vehicle type, or a leader type. And that really, really makes the game very interactive, and it also gives you that little bit of lack of perfect knowledge of what's going to happen in the game, so you can't predict exactly when your units are going to go. And I really like this mechanic a lot. And what's interesting about the way they did the cards was, typically for most leaders so far, the cards that let you control more of your units and get more orders to your units make your first initiative step less likely. And the cards that give you really, really high initiative step give you less control of the rest of your army. So it's almost like your leader's taking more time to make sure the communications are going well, but he's less jumping off the line. Or you can go first, but you can really only go first with 1 unit and have control of that. Does that make sense, Craig? Did I miss anything there?
It does. And in addition to that, to add even more flavor, so there are 4 generic cards, and there's a 1 pip, a 2 pip, a 3 pip, and it's actually the 1 pip you only give an order to 1 unit. The 2 pip you give it to 2. The 3 pip you give it to 3, and they have to be within range 3 of the commander that's giving the order. So that gives you some more command and control issues to deal with on the board. And on top of that, you have the commander that you buy gives you access to cards as well. Each commander has a 1 pip, a 2 pip, and a 3 pip, but those also have special rules attached to them. That's how Veers has an AT-AT that's off the board that once per game can just blast somebody on that board with its turbo lasers. That's how Leia, who's in communication with the fleet over the planet, can have a coordinated bombardment once per battle. So these cards really can affect the game And you can have up to 2 commanders if you want to spend the points on it. And you can choose both of their cards instead. You always have to have 7. And you always have to have 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, and your 4. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to shape your tactics. Like, as Russ said, Veers gives you more control over vehicles. I think Leia is more about troops. Luke and Darth Vader are both about more like helping themselves or threatening the people around them, depending on, who they are.
Right.
And so I think the cards, the command cards do, again, they sounded fiddly to me when I first heard about them, but I love them now. It's, you agonize over when are you going to use that one card that's going to give you that shot, or the one card that's going to let Luke attack twice in hand-to-hand. And so you've got these options that are going to shape your not only your army and your tactics, it all works together. So I think that's important too. When you're choosing your commander, you have to decide not only on the model and the model's abilities, but the command cards that come with it.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is your commander is going to dictate your play style, and your army list is going to dictate your play style. And you can build a certain kind of army to accelerate different sorts of things. So you might build a more mobile force. You might build a better force that's sitting still and shooting at long range, because some units have weapons that are better if you stand still. Other units are better on the move. So as you can imagine, if you build your list one way or another, certain missions you'll do better than in other missions. And so this is where mission selection comes in. And I think another brilliant mechanic here is they took a page right out of Dust Warfare and out of Rune Wars, both of which games I really like how they do mission selection. And they do something similar with a little twist on it in the Star Wars game, where there are actually 3 different types of mission-related cards. And this is kind of funny because this kind of goes back to our very first episode of the D6G. We talked about this idea that we wish a miniature gaming company would make decks that control the mission and the effects of a mission. And here we are in one of our last episodes, really talking about how Fantasy Flight has gone the full way with this and kind of taken it to a great place, which is you draw these cards and you're going to have 3 different types. The first one is a choice of deployment types, whether you're going to be long table edge, short table edge, L's, pretty much you name it, there's a different deployment pattern. Then you have a second row of cards, and this will be battlefield conditions. Maybe there's radiation winds, or maybe there's rain, or it's dark, or whatever. There's a bunch of those. And then your third row is the actual objective type, what you're trying to do. And it might be get to certain points on the battlefield, or it might be recover the data, or whatever. There's a bunch of those, right? And what's going to happen is there's going to be a little matrix of these set up with a row of different battlefield deployments, a row of different battlefield conditions, and a row of different mission objectives. And then going back and forth, each player is going to systematically eliminate one of those things. So if I've optimized my list for speed and mobility, maybe at the price of heavy firepower, I probably want to lean towards missions and battlefield conditions that reward and don't hamper that. And meanwhile, if Craig has designed a list that's more heavy hitting, he might want the opposite of those sorts of things. And so we both have a chance now to influence those things in different ways. So it's almost like a pre-game game to help influence our chances on the battlefield, sort of like the Sun Tzu, choose your battlefield, know your opponent kind of situation. So I really like this mechanic a lot, and it helps. What's also cool about it is Craig just bought a new Star Wars terrain set, right, by Fantasy Flight. Yeah. And in the terrain set comes with more deployment options, more battlefield conditions, and more missions. So now those just expand even more. So there's all these different cool things you can do. So keeps the game fresh. So I really like the system, Craig. What did you think of it?
I love it. I love the fact that the game comes with 4 of each card, and then the terrain, the objective. They should call it the objective. Well, I think they do, but it comes with all. It comes with 1 more of each of those, and so each time you play, you're making your grid. You're eliminating, and you're trying to decide. Oh, what is he good at? What am I good at? What, do I want to get in close? Do I want to keep him at range? What's most important to me? So it's this little mini game that happens at the beginning that shapes what's going to happen for the rest of the game. I love it. It is very much, as you said, it's a combination of what Rune Wars was doing years ago, and what Dust Warfare was doing years ago, and what Rune Wars is doing now, into this awesome grid mentality. And we ended up with, and I hated Russ for this because we had a couple different options for the conditions, and Russ sort of had the last call, and we ended up with hostile conditions, which meant that your units had to stick close to terrain or they would be more nervous for the whole game, which is another example of a very simple mechanic being able to being used to be a variety of different things in game, which was great. So there's a suppression mechanic when you get shot at, and there's a way to get rid of the suppression. But because of this condition that it was a hostile environment, if your guy wasn't huddled close to terrain, he couldn't get rid of suppression as easily because the guys are more nervous and whatnot. So we were trying to take buildings and control buildings. You can only control them with the leader. The leader is really the sort of the core of the whole unit. And the deployment zones where we are fighting long way down the board. So, which I love games that do that too, where you set up the terrain and it's really cool because you can just set it up to look neat because you don't know whether you're going to come in diagonally, whether you're going to come in sideways, whether you're going to come in short ways. So I loved that whole thing. So we had to choose. You roll off to see who's the blue player, who's the red player, and then you're going to choose 3 structures or 3 terrain pieces on the board that are going to be the key terrain pieces that we're trying to keep. And so I chose the big giant tower in the middle, and then Russ chose a container that was closer to his side, but not so close that it looked egregious. And then I chose a building that was roughly the same distance from my deployment zone as his container, but on the same flank, because unfortunately that was the only piece. I guess I could have picked a crate, but that made it a game. So we really were leveled towards the towards one flank and the middle of the board, which made for a great game and that totally shaped and changed the deployment and the way the game was flowing through the whole time. So you were you want to kill the other units, so you got so the enemy has fewer activations. Ultimately, the last model in every unit has to be the commander, so you have to wipe out a unit before it can't take the objective in this mission. And so you had to commit your fire at the same time. I had the air speeder. The air speeder was doing great for me in an earlier game this week. The air speeder went up against the AT-ST, and the AT-ST blew it out of the sky with a single volley. This time, the AT-ST was juking, and it was flying, and it was going around terrain, and it was shooting down guys, and it was using the rear gun and the front guns, and it came right into the teeth of the AT-ST. But at that point, my command cards were low. Russ's command cards were low. Neither of us could put an order token on the AT-ST or the air speeder. It was going to come down to who came out of the stack first, and that damn AT-ST popped him
out of the sky,
shot him down like a dog right there in the middle of the board. And that's just the kind of thing that the order, the command cards, the order tokens, and the random stack all combined for these really cool moments in a game that I'm not sure how you'd get otherwise. So you're trying to take these objectives, but at the same time, you got to protect your assets. So it's a really interesting interplay.
And what I love about this game is really the magic is in the beginning of each turn when you're thinking about the card you're going to play, and then which units that allows to lock in the orders for. But when each unit activates, it's really very simple. You activate a unit. As Craig mentioned earlier, you measure using the little measuring stick how far the leader moves. Then you move all the rest of the models within range 1 of the leader you just moved. And then you fire. And you can pre-measure range. So you say, oh, look, I can shoot that unit, so I'm going to shoot. You roll your pool of dice. The other unit you're shooting at rolls as defense dice. You subtract the shields rolled from the hits hit. And pretty much you remove casualties, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's some nice subtle rules around certain hit types. Terrain allows you to cover, allows you to remove hits from the pool unless the attacker rolled criticals. And then vehicles have some nuanced rules. They have a lot more wounds before they go down. But they each have a stage. Most of them have a stage where if you get to like half their wounds roughly, or some pre-described numbers on the card, then they take an effect that persists, so they become less accurate or they don't move as fast or whatever. And as Craig mentioned also, there's a very nice, simple morale mechanic where every time you get shot, you take a suppression token. And when you go to activate a unit, you have to roll a die to see if you lose any suppression tokens. And if you don't, you have too many, you start to lose activations. And basically, each turn you activate a unit, it gets 2 actions. It can move twice, it can move and shoot, it can aim and shoot for better accuracy. So it's a very simple set of rules, but where the awesomeness comes in is this idea of the cards. And I just love that mission selection system we already talked about. Fantastic.
It was awesome. What was a moment you remember from the game?
My favorite moment was really trying to stop Luke and failing. So Luke comes running into the middle, and I fired everything I had at him, but Luke survived with 2 wounds and cut down Veers and some key models. But I loved that, Veers had his moment. He was able to order the troops when it mattered. The stormtroopers got to the right spot. I also really liked the stormtroopers have extra weapons. You give them heavy weapons in the units, and one of them is missile launchers, and the missile launchers require you to spend an action to reload them. So now your unit, if it's going to fire a missile launcher each turn, only is doing half as much as it might otherwise. Also, if they move, they can't shoot. So you got to make some tough decisions tactically around, do I keep advancing? And the mission required that I advance. So I had to be less shooting near the end of the mission, just run for it. So I love that as well. And there were just a lot of stand-up die roll moments too that I really enjoyed also. So the game felt very close right up to the end, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it didn't feel quite as close to me, but that's because most of my models were dead. Luke I misread the situation, and I thought I could do some really cool thing with Luke, and I kind of wasted his one of his really cool command cards, which allows him. Normally, you can only attack. The only thing you can do twice in a turn is move. Everything else you can only do once in an activation. And he has a card that allows him to fight twice, which is huge because he's really good, and his lightsaber cuts right through armor. It's all kinds of coolness. And I misread the situation, one rule, and so I couldn't get to where I wanted him to be. So I thought he was just going to die. But it still took 2 full turns of the Empire shooting at Luke before he finally went down to the ATST, which had been freaked out because it had just killed Wedge.
Exactly.
So there were some awesome moments. I love the way the speeder bikes work. The speeder bikes feel perfect to me. They're not armored, and the guys on them have scout armor, but they're a little more durable than your average rebel, and they're really super fast. I love the way the flying models work. They can be very fast, but they can also be moderately fast, and instead use targeting and other things to really kind of combine all of their abilities to make them more effective with their weapons. I love the ATSD, you could load it up to be a freaking armory, and even if you want to spend a fortune, it can have 4 weapons on it and fire all 4 weapons. But then it's then you're spending a lot of points on that one model. So I've seen it gone stripped down as Russ took it, and I've seen it as just a big giant tank in the middle of the board. And I'm not sure what I'd rather face on the other side. Maybe not an ATSD at all. Maybe that would be worth.
All right, Steven, is this all making sense? I know we got very excited, just kind of rambling on there for a minute. But
you guys got so excited about this. I just wanted to let you guys roll with it. For a non-miniatures gamer, no, you're making it sound very cool. Now, obviously, this IP is, of course, top notch. Of course, everybody wants to play in the Star Wars universe. One of the things that I thought would be really cool is to take Darth Vader and put every possible upgrade on him, and then do the scene in Rogue One where he's like, where he's going through the corridor, and he's slicing through people like it's it's like butter, right? Just like it's.
He can do that in this game.
Yeah, he pretty much does that. He's scary.
Yeah, that showed you how great Darth Vader. Well, how amazing his skills are. So if you could do that and you can kind of put him in that kind of environment, it would be very cool to see that kind of thing. So anyway, going back to the game itself, though, no, it definitely draws me in. It's something that the fact that you're saying this is a easy, even very easy miniatures game. That's kind of my thing, right? I don't want something where like I'm checking out charts and it's going to be impossible to play it as somebody who doesn't do miniatures. If somebody who likes things that they can get into in an easier way is something that I'm very drawn to, and of course being in the Star Wars universe, it would be a lot of fun. So excited about trying something like this in the future. So you made me very, very happy to be trying this.
Excellent.
All right.
Cool.
Excellent. Craig, what are your final thoughts? How would you rate this using the patent-pended D6G rating system?
Okay, so the patent-pended D6G rating system, of course, the lower the number, the better it is. It's the number you'd need on an average gamer would need on a die roll to like it. I'm gonna say at average gamer 4+, miniatures gamer 3+. I'm gonna granulize this to death.
Sure, go for it.
Star Wars miniatures gamer 2+. If you love Star Wars and you're a gamer, I think this is a 2+. What about you, Russ?
I love your rating, but I'm going to move them all up one notch only because of the painting. So I
really
think like,
5+?
Well, okay, 4+ for everybody and a 3+ for Star Wars fans. And the reason I say that is because unlike X-Wing, because X-Wing is pre-painted, X-Wing I would put at your level, 2+, 3+, because it's pre-painted. But the painting is going to be a barrier for someone like Steven. So I feel like Steven, if someone gave you Craig's set that he's already painted up perfectly, you, I think, would be addicted to this game. But because you got to paint it all, I think you might be like, I'm not a painter. I can't do it.
Although it does come color-coded.
Yeah, okay. All right. But I think the magic here is seeing it all painted. Yeah.
That's true.
I think the magic's seeing it all painted. But for a miniature gamer, miniature Star Wars fan, go in with it. And even if you're not a Star Wars fan hardcore, I think there's a lot of good mechanics here. I think Fantasy Flight has really distilled down everything they've learned in their prior miniature games in a really good way here. And so I hope it does well for them and they're able to expand it slightly. I wanted that from Rune Wars. One of the reasons I like Rune Wars so much was I think they got the mechanics really, really nicely nailed down. Unfortunately, it looks like Craig and I are the only guys who bought it, so I'm not sure. But hopefully Star Wars, being the IP that it is, will do a little better for them, and we'll see if they can expand this and add more vehicles and more cool stuff and more unit types. So I love it. I would give this, like I said, 3+ for miniature gamers who love Star Wars, 4+ for everyone else. And so, Steven, I'm glad you are interested in trying it out as well. I think it bodes well for this thing.
No, it sounds like just a great romp. I mean, I would really, really want to try this. Yeah, the whole painting thing is obviously very, very hard. But if you don't, do you have to paint them?
No, you can play without them. You can play without them.
You can play without it. There's no reason not to. So to me, I'll play with the unpainted ones and enjoy it. 2+.
What you 2+. No, Steven, what you got to do is fly up here to New Hampshire, Steven, and we'll play on Craig's table, and that'll be great.
Exactly.
No, I will do this.
Okay, excellent.
I will do this at some point. If you're really serious, I'm going to do it.
All right, sold. Yeah. Come on up. Yeah,
sold.
Deal. Right. I'm renting out Craig's house as we speak.
Right. Or you guys fly down to me. I'll fly you down, come to Florida, and hang out with me. What do you think?
Oh, that sounds fun too. But then we got to transport
in the dead of winter.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty good. That is tempting.
That's right.
Well, all right, Steven, thank you so much for joining us here on near the end of the D6G traditional podcast. We really appreciate it.
It's great. Yep. I was so excited to be on this show with you guys from the beginning and now. Great time. Thank you for all you've done. It has been a great time. So looking forward to seeing that minimalist version you're going to be doing too. I can't wait.
We'll listen carefully to that, and we'll see you next week at Gen Con, Steven. Very excited about this.
Can't wait.
I can't wait for Inglestein donuts. Yeah.
Ooh, nom, nom, nom.
And we're clear. Gentlemen, that was awesome. With 3 minutes to spare. Nicely done.
Very good.
All right, excellent.
So why did you actually have I missed that. Why did you have a hard cut?
Yeah, we're trying this new live chat room thing, which we didn't really need tonight because nobody joined us. It limits it to 2 hours, period. So,
okay,
which I kind of like because we were going excessively long, but in moments like this, it just stops.
We wish the lesson that it was a 2-minute hard stop and erased everything else was a less painful lesson for us to learn.
Yeah, that's why Terrace's episode 238 is gone, right? That's
we
what
lost
happened. Yeah.
Entire recording session.
Yeah, it stinks.
But that's good.
All right. Well, Steven, we'll see you next week, man. Safe travels. Good luck getting everything done. And we'll see you here next week at Gen Con in Indy.
Can't wait, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
Thank you so much again.
All right. Take care,
Steven.
man. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by all of our friends over at Patreon. The men, the women, the boys, the girls, the stuffed animals, the pets, pretty much everybody who's helped us keep going for as long as we have. Without you guys, this would have ended a long time ago, and we wouldn't have done all the cool stuff we've done in the years preceding. So thank you. And in particular today, I'd like to thank Chris Young, Chris Zebley, and then Shogun42, Ricky, Rick, Canada Andy, Peter, Mermuse, Tim, Wap, and many others who only left a single name. Thank you for everything. Did you ever notice how fast time flies? You have no idea what's going on, and then all of a sudden something happens that just shows you that years have just sailed on past. Nothing does that more than having a child. 1 minute you're sailing along and everything's great, and the next minute you have, how old are you?
8.
You're 8? How long have you been 8?
A week.
A week. You just had a birthday. So you have a baby, and the next thing you know, you're playing Star Wars Legion with a little man sitting across the table from you. And did we just play Star Wars Legion?
Yeah.
And did you enjoy it?
So much.
So much? You like this a lot?
Yep.
How many times have we played Star Wars Legion?
3.
3 times so far. And what happened the first couple of times? Did you win or lose or what?
Win.
You really? You sure? Nodding makes no sound on the radio.
I won.
I don't remember that being the case, but I know for a fact what happened right now.
I overkilled people, but I won too.
You crushed me, right?
Yeah.
You lost some guys, but boy, did you crush me.
I know.
What did I have left at the end?
Princess Leia and one other squad.
One squad that was kind of hiding with an objective token, right? It was brutal. I thought I had you, right? What did I aim at? My whole army was shooting at what in the beginning of the game?
Darth?
No. What was it?
The ATST?
Yeah, the ATST. And I've been terrified of those for all the games that I've been playing against adults. And so it was almost like my whole army was a big trap with ion guns and walkers, ATRTs with laser cannons. And I sprung the trap and I killed it. It would only got one shot off the whole game. And then it died. And then everything else I owned just fell apart, right?
Yup.
So if you were to say one of us kept his eye on the mission and was looking at getting those boxes and keeping them safe, and one of us lost sight of that mission, who do you think kept sight of the mission?
Me.
Yeah, I think you did, and I think I got all jazzed up about killing an ATST and then put myself out of position. So, first of all, I should have introduced you. Everybody, this is Reese. Reese, this is everybody.
Hello.
Say hi. Hi, good job. And Reese is 8, as we said. And many of you longtime listeners actually have shared a little bit in my bringing up of Reese from his birth. The podcast was just about 2 years old when Reese was born, and here he is 8. And my God, has the time flown. It's ridiculous the way that works. And a lot of you have been asking, since Russ and I have been talking well of Star Wars Legion, many of you have been asking, have I played it with Reese and how did he like it? So we've played it a bunch, like he just said. And let's talk a little bit, Reese, about so you like the game.
Yep.
And do you think, are there parts of it that are harder than other parts?
Well, kind of.
Like, what's a hard part?
Beating your dad.
Okay, that's not exactly what I meant. I meant like the game that, and you think you beat me 3 times. I don't know. Anyway, like playing the game itself, like remembering the numbers, figuring out who's rolling what dice.
Oh.
Is any of that hard?
Yeah.
Now, why is it hard? Where do you find all those different dice?
In this little mixed up box.
Well, that's where the actual dice are. You are correct. You're like pulling the curtain back on the way we play around here. So there's a box full of all the different dice. But where do you find the information that tells you what dice to roll? For, like, let's say your squad...
These little cards.
The cards, right? So if you have a squad of stormtroopers like you just had, and you add one of the big machine gun blasters with the stormtrooper squad and then the regular stormtrooper squad, just by looking at those 2 cards, could you figure out how many dice to roll?
Yes.
Yeah, you did it a bunch of times because I was making you, but it is my tendency to try to do things and help, but I know that's not always the right thing, and so I was trying to stand back and not do that. What about so you can figure out the dice, right?
Yep.
And it's easy to figure out whether people hit or not. How do you tell if they hit?
There's this thing, if you have a hit,
It's a little symbol, right, on the die?
And then if the other person rolls a die for if they make shields, they save.
Yeah,
but if they make little thunderbolts, they might save.
Right. That's right. The surge might save depending on who it is, and the little shields definitely save. So instead of having to look at numbers and figure out what the numbers mean, the dice immediately tell you what's going on, right? Yep. So that's easy. What about moving the guys? The way you move one guy and then everybody else moves, is that easy or hard?
A little bit easy.
Now, you've played a bunch of other games with me, right? We played Frostgrave a lot.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, we played, what else have we played, miniatures games-wise? Necromunda, right? So all those use like a tape measure.
Yeah.
And you have to move each model individually, right? Mm-hmm. What's easier, moving with a tape measure or moving with these little tools?
Tools.
So it is easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about... So I would say one of the more complicated things a game, especially a science fiction game, can do is a flyer, right? Or a model that can fly or move really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And the way Legion does it, as I can't remember now if we talked about it in the review, when a model has flyer 1 or flyer 2, the main thing about what it does is the very first thing it does when it activates, it has to take a full move, and it can't stop anywhere along the path of the move. So if the move can't take it around or through or underneath terrain, if it rams right into the terrain, then it takes a whole bunch of damage and it's probably dead.
I had no idea.
Yeah, but did you have to know that?
No.
All you had to know was at the beginning of each time you activated your bikes, what did they have to do?
Fly?
They had to move one, right?
Yeah.
So you took the 3 thing and you moved them. Then you had your 2 additional activations. So in effect, they're faster. They're a little more maneuverable, but at the same time, they're a little less nimble because they're going so fast. Mm-hmm. But did you have to worry about any of that stuff?
No.
No. And then they have cover 1. So whenever they're getting shot at, it's harder to hit them. So all of that is dealt with very well and very clearly. So at any time, did you have any confusion about how the bikes worked?
No.
And what about my flyer, my air speeder? Was that at all confusing ever?
No.
Nope. So it's really super simple. So I think that, so these rules are relatively easy to understand for you?
Yep.
And the mission, you understood the mission?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think there's like 2 more things I'd like to talk about really quickly to kind of get your opinion of how they worked. Mm-hmm. The first one is the command cards, right? You remember the command cards?
Yep.
Now, was that hard or easy or like a cool puzzle to try to figure out which command card to use each turn?
Puzzle.
It was a puzzle. Do you feel like you did it well?
Yep.
What was your favorite Darth Vader card?
Lord of Evil.
Master of Evil?
Yes.
And what did that do? I think Master of Evil gives Darth a dodge token, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think what you meant was Implacable, which is the card that you used what was the coolest thing Darth Vader did in that whole game?
Probably get a free dodge token.
Well, no, he did something cooler than get a free dodge token. What did he do in that turn where you were facing 2 different squads of rebel troopers?
Almost kill all of them.
Well, how, though? Because you can only attack once per turn, right?
They threw the lightsaber.
So you had a full squad and a remaining commander next to the crate that you were fighting over, right? So you came in, right? Mm-hmm. And you threw your lightsaber at the one guy, and you did what?
Kill him.
Splatted him all over the battlefield, right? And then what allowed you to move again?
I kill him.
No, you had the command card, remember?
Oh, yeah.
The command card said if you take a wound, you can put yourself back in the stack and activate again. So that allowed you to. That was a cool moment. What was was there another cool moment at all in the game that you remember that was like yay, where you stood up and you cheered?
Yes.
I remember several, but do you remember any?
Yeah.
Could you tell the people?
I was like about to die. He got like 5 on me. And like I only needed like 3 to die, but I got the 5.
5 blocks?
Yeah.
As what?
Shields.
For what though? For what model? Was it Darth Vader or was it a squad?
I think it was Darth Vader.
Okay, cool. And so the last thing I wanted to ask was, remember at the very beginning of the game where we had those 9 cards and we had to decide what deployment zone, what mission, and what condition the battlefield was going to have?
Yeah.
Was that relatively easy to figure out?
A little bit.
It was a little confusing?
Yeah.
But, excuse me, as I explained each thing, right? And then you knew you could get rid of one of those. And was that like a fun part of the game after you figured it out?
Yeah.
Because you got why was it fun?
Probably because it was. I thought it was cool that like you could like take cards away when the other people didn't want to.
Okay, so it let you shape the battle before it started?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. Okay. So if you had to say how much you liked this game, right? You know how on a 1 through 10 rating works, right? Where 1 is really good and 1 is really bad and 10 is really good?
Yeah.
What if we reverse it? We do a 1 through 6 and 1 is really good and 6 is really bad. What would you say?
2.
Star Wars Legion is a 2. Really? Sounds like your old man got that one right. All right. So you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Bye.
And bye. Thank you for listening and good night. You can say good night too.
Good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA Discussions Forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
He's back.
Gone.
Do you hear me again? Something happened.
We can hear you.
That's Steven. It looked suspiciously like Michael Douglas to me.
We're gonna get to Mike. Hold on, let me close the door here. Hold on. Hold on.
Michael Douglas.
I've been called Michael Douglas in the past.
I never would have thought until that moment, and now I'm like, oh my god, it's Michael Douglas.
Oh my god, it's Michael Douglas.
Young Michael Douglas on the other end.
I'm the younger version, not the fossil that he. No,
which we'll get to in a minute. Don't jump ahead.
Don't jump ahead.
All right.
Okay, wait.
Here we go.
Show notes. Go ahead.